Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. This is Rob, your host, and today I'm happy to be joined by Jeremy and Lexey. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Great.
And this is going to be a fun one, but it's kind of just an impromptu kind of, let's do a podcast and get together. And I actually shot it to Jeremy, and he's like, hey, let's do it tomorrow. And I was like, cool. But had no clue what we should do it on, and just kind of winging it until Jeremy texted back and said, hey, look, pull out 3 bottles from your fridge and let's just tell me what you got, and we'll just kind of talk about it, go through them, and just educate me a little bit about what I'm drinking. So that's kind of what we did, right? Is that about right, Jeremy?
That's exactly
So
it.
What I did was I just kind of pulled out 3 that I know I enjoy drinking. Don't know a lot about them. I just they've been either suggested or I've seen other people drink them and talk, hey, really good things about it. So I said, I'll pull these out and let them, educate me. Tell me what we're doing here.
So today, and this format I think is really interesting. It's really fun for me because I rarely get to dig into wines prior with being able to do a lot of research or know quite a bit about different wines over the past 15 years or so. I've learned about wine, so can attend a lot of tastings, know little snippets and stuff like that, but I don't always know what's going to be there. So this was a lot of fun. So between the 3 producers, one is absolutely new to me, but one of my favorite regions is going to be the Gigondas. The Domaine Drew, and I'm very familiar with the family, but I never had this particular bottling. So this is one of their Beaujolais. It's a Cru Morgan 16, and it's a Hospice Belleville. And then the last one, which I'm the most excited about, is Montbusquet, which is one of my favorite Bordeaux producers, hands down. They just do phenomenal wine. Always have from everything I've been able to taste from them, and I'm really excited about it. It smells fantastic. I haven't tasted it yet.
So I pulled out 3 French wines.
Yes.
One of Bordeaux, one Gigondas.
Yep.
And which is from Rhone.
Yes. So
and
the
then,
southern part of the Rhone, yep.
And then a Burgundy.
Burgundy, and Burgundy with the asterisk of Beaujolais, but Cru Beaujolais.
Okay.
So not considered the super finest areas of Burgundy. Still in the same wheelhouse. It's kind of little brother, if you will. Different grape varietal predominantly, but these are serious. This is a very serious version, and it's tasting awesome right now.
Okay.
So kind of jumping into the first one, it's going to be the Domaine Druin, and that's the one that we're on right now. And so family goes back quite a bit. They're one of the more powerful families in Burgundy and have been for a long time. So history goes back to the 1880s. They were pretty much all negociant at that point. And so they started buying land after World War II. And from that point on, they've now become the 4th largest landholder in Burgundy.
So when you say they're all negociant, what does that mean?
So negociant, it's more particularly with, out of all the areas in France, the one that is applied to the most is Burgundy. The big thing with Burgundy is during Napoleon's time, one of the things they put into place is if you had children, the inheritance gets split equally. And so it fragmented an area that is very divided and put into very particular places, that it definitely affects the cost, the price, the availability, kind of all the above. And then it made it even more kind of scarce because where it might have been one family that had 2 hectares in a premier cru vineyard, now they're fragmented, let's say 2 generations later, each one of them had 2 kids, so now it's basically you're at, 4 owners at that point. For something that was 2 hectares. And
wow.
So it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and as time goes by, it gets to a point to where you can't seriously make any wine.
Somebody owns 2 rows.
Exactly. Yeah. So collectively, they have to pull their resources together, sell fruit, because some of these guys don't even have enough fruit to fill a barrel. And so that's where the negotiants come into play.
So it means negotiate. We have to negotiate
exactly.
And put our resources together to get some good product.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there's kind of 2 schools of thought for Burgundy. The negociant side is it's very interesting, and it's not an easy job. It is almost an impossible job. I couldn't imagine how hard that job has to be because every year you have to go and fight for these things and what you're willing to pay and what the market's willing to take, and how the farmer feels about it, and then also there's restrictions on growing and cultivating, when to pick, what you want your fruit to be, and these long-standing contracts to where you can get in a good situation, things like that. But at the end of the day, really nothing's set in stone. So it's you don't know what the weather's going to do, and so being at the mercy of the only thing you can control is negotiation is kind of absolutely insane.
So that's a big reason why you say it's a tougher region for Burgundy over there.
Beaujolais, no. Beaujolais,
Okay.
Burgundy as a whole has been that way. It's been fragmented. And so between 10 feet is a difference of $30 a bottle and $300 a bottle.
Really?
And so it's been absolutely studied. It's the most studied area of the world as far as for any region. It's kind of the crown jewel of being a big wino.
But that distance, not much. Mm-mm. So the soil's the change, but it's the vines that have been planted that are different, or
you can have different soil types, and the
still
vines
different
yes.
soil.
So you'll see sometimes. It's crazy. Like during rains or something like that, like they'll be like grabbing their soil and putting it back.
Really,
like it goes down the hill, or like just to the different areas, and it's one of those rabbit holes that you can fall down, like studying Burgundy. Just never ending. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The only other area that would even be close would be like Barolo.
Okay.
Barolo is very site-specific to a place, very varied soils, elevation, different crews to study. And even that study's, in infancy compared to the long history of these monks that, set out these parcels and set these limits and did these things hundreds of years ago. And so
wow.
It's a rewarding thing to study. It's also the hardest thing to study, besides German wine.
So when you get a good
because of just who could pronounce a 15-letter word.
I have difficulty with that. The white that's popular, the starts with a G.
Groskavax?
Yeah. Thanks for saying it. I can't.
Yeah.
But
love them. Yeah.
This particular wine is it's okay. It's a decent wine for that.
No, and this is a funny thing. So Beaujolais is considered definitely the little brother. It's kind of the blessing and the curse of finding something that really taps into the American psyche. The marketing benefits of Beaujolais Nouveau have also kind of bastardized the name. And so because of that, a lot of people don't take Beaujolais as being a serious thing. But it can be very serious. And there's 3 main crus. There's 10 crus that are considered the finer villages for Beaujolais. And there's 3 that are known for ageability and power. And so they kind of transcend the category of standard Beaujolais.
Okay.
And so this is one of the 3. So there's Morgon, Moulin, and Vaughn is the most famous and the most powerful, and then Chenin. And so those are the big 3. And so this is a serious version, and it's drinking like it. Like this could definitely go 15 years easy.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is 2016 in the glass now, and this is their hospice, the Belleville. And so the interesting thing with like the hospice wines that you see in Burgundy and in Beaujolais, these were basically charitable donations that have been set throughout time to fund hospitals.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this one in particular is for a particular hospital in Beaujolais.
Oh, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting. It's not entirely true to form anymore, but throughout history, the bigger hospice auctions that they do, and it's usually donated barrels from the vintage previous, have set the prices for what Burgundy will be that year. Because it's their first release, people get to go out there and do barrel samples, they taste it, and then whatever the auction prices get set and what these barrels sell for is what people can kind of base their price off of. For fruit to sell to negociants.
Right.
Or just for their own particular thing of what they want to sell the wine for that year.
That's pretty interesting. I had no idea.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is.
There's some contributing factors besides just taste. It could also be, sometimes you have these awful vintages that are absolutely fantastic for making wine as far as the quality, but you'll lose, 60% of your fruit. So you have a bad frost, and sometimes it benefits the vine to focus on less fruit and make better wine.
Right.
But at the same point in time, now those farmers have to survive off 40% of production.
Right.
And so prices go through the roof on an area that's already kind of like...
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, small production.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of kind of contributing factors to price for Burgundy and kind of how it can go. This is delicious.
Okay.
This is super delicious.
Good. I didn't do bad there.
The acid is absolutely fantastic on it.
Yeah.
The past couple of years, Burgundy's just been getting annihilated.
Okay.
With frost and hail and just absolute product loss.
Yeah.
So
production has been just low because of this.
And prices are higher for something that's already, in general, a higher priced area. Yeah. And then even Beaujolais, which we have that misconception because like what Jeremy was saying about Beaujolais Nouveau, and everyone thinks of this like kind of cheap, swill type of wine that you're getting.
Yeah.
And then you've got these beautiful, Grand Crus and these wines that can actually age and are, stunning. So.
So this one's all right. I didn't do bad here.
No, this one's fantastic. And so, like, one of the really interesting things that's happening right now that doesn't have anything to do with this particular wine, but just besides its category, Beaujolais is kind of considered in certain forms kind of a bastard of Burgundy. It's not to be argued, but prior to even 10 years ago, the indefinite history of kind of research you'd look for in books and stuff like that, there were even like some people would kind of throw it in the Rhone as like a department of the Rhone, which is kind of crazy because it sits between proper Burgundy and the Rhone on the what would be the north side of the Rhone or southern tip of Burgundy. And so it's none of that's really ever been true, but no one ever wanted to kind of demystify it either. And so the funny thing is, it's been kind of put in this like afterthought category. Well, right now Burgundy's looking at doing the same thing with Chablis. And so it's like really kind of the funny thing is that they've always will be considered Burgundy, but now they're stylistically so different and they're so far away from the base of where we think of as proper Burgundy in the Côte d'Or that they're thinking about kind of doing the same thing and eliminating Bourgogne for Chablis, which is absolutely insane.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird. This could be like kind of a historical thing that will happen if it does happen. And so it's just...
So what's going to drive that decision ultimately?
I don't know who has the vote. I guess the consortium's there. I don't know.
Okay.
I just recently heard about this. It's like, that's so freaking wild that they'd even consider doing that, But there's always been this like, really great thing with Chablis, too, that's never really quite made a whole lot of sense with me. There's basically 33 Grand Crus in Burgundy. I think that's right. 33, right?
Okay.
So 32 are in the Côte d'Or. And then Chablis gets 1, but it's 7 Grand Crus. Like, none of this stuff ever made sense to me. And so, like... I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, but like it's just this is one of those things.
People are going, okay, what's he talking about?
And then I can talk to really smart people about Burgundy, and they'll be like, yeah, but it's 7. I'm all like, but it's 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't ever make sense. It's always just kind of a blank stare. I'm like, okay, all right, so we're all gonna drink the Kool-Aid on this. So, but it's just a really interesting area, and
so Burgundy, for me. For a long time, I wouldn't drink a Pinot.
Yeah.
And friends would have me try something from California or Oregon, and I'd be like, still not just a big fan. But then I got into, and you kind of steered me that way and said, you got to get into Burgundy. And I went down to Houston Wine Merchant, and he hooked me up with
Antonio.
several. Awesome
He's
ones.
Great.
And now I go, okay, I like these.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I mean, everybody, I heard stories that, Oregon and Burgundy similar with where they're located, longitude, latitude, and all of this and growing. Mm-hmm. But I'm assuming soil and weather is not even close, is it? Or is it similar?
They're both like, all in all, kind of like was saying this in a way that won't make me sound like a fucking idiot. It would be like, they're not really super desirable places to live if there wasn't wine there.
Okay.
It's kind of cold and shitty a lot.
This is where?
Between both of them. Like
okay.
This is kind of
Burgundy,
like a general kind of consensus.
Okay.
And I'm not bastardizing either one of them. I'm just saying that like there's sunny, beautiful places that grow grapes that are pretty damn desirable. You'd want to be there regardless of viticulture or not.
Right.
And so it's just Pinot functions in these weird, bizarre climates, and they flourish there, and they do best there. They need long growing season. And these places can provide it.
So is it just me that I say, I'm more partial to Burgundy than I am Oregon or California? Or do you guys think it's similar? Or
I think it's sunshine for California at least.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you get more sugar in the grape, so it produces a richer style of wine, more fruit abundant, and so typically a bit more glycerol.
Okay.
So right out the gate, you're basically judging on what kind of fruit you like. You know what I mean? You don't get a lot of secondary flavors out the gate. Like site specific, and that's what makes Burgundy so special, is that individual places have an absolute trademark flavor taste.
And they're close by.
They're right next to each other.
But totally different.
Totally different. And so like one of my favorite ones is Domaine Ronceville. No, it's Domaine Arlaud Ronceville. And so their closest neighbor, and this is would be considered a Bourgogne. So just basically entry-level Pinot.
Okay.
Their closest neighbor is Mazerie Chambertin. And so the difference between being right next door, they're literally like $30 to $40 a bottle retail. And literally right next door is like $180 to $240 bottle.
Oh, wow.
But if you know, and this is the greatest thing about Burgundy, this is one of those things like once you start getting into it and you start knowing, that's one of those things that's all like, you don't always have to overpay or pay for that name when you could get what's next to it or a declassification of from it. You know what I'm saying?
That's the hardest thing for me. I started in Napa. In Napa, reading a label and understanding what's in the bottle to a point, and a lot of times Napa puts on there what their blend is. Even though they call it a cab, they'll tell you it's 85%, but we still have Petit Verdot and Merlot or whatever else is in there.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out a label on old world things, France and Italy specifically, is still tough for me. Trying to understand where it's coming from and how to read it. So I'm the consumer in the grocery store, and
it's intimidating.
It's
intimidating for the American
Makes me
consumer.
feel stupid. Yeah.
So it does, and that's one thing that it drives a lot of our market, because it's like, okay, I don't know a lot, but I know I like this, and I can see this very clearly. And you're looking at something else, and when you're looking at we've got 3 French labels here, and where you're talking about, it's like, I'm drinking Morgon. Well, it's like the wine's name is Morgon. No, that's where it's from, and it's really funny. Jeremy did this, I think, beginning of last year, and I think you probably saw it at one point where he was looking at grocery store wines, right? And he was taking all these home, like the big cellars and all these things that, that drive our market, basically, and allow, a lot of people to have the money to maybe do something else. And, but, the wine itself was, well, I mean, this big.
Awful. Okay. The word you're looking for is awful.
I think you had the hashtag on the front lines or something
reporting
like that.
From the front lines.
Reporting from the front lines. Yeah. And then that's when, and I mean, not to do this plug, but I mean, I guess it is, but he helped design a label for the winery that he works, with, that was an Italian wine made by a great winemaker from a great family, but with a really cool, approachable label that you see, and it's like all these things that we see on there, like 19 crimes and things like that, all in the grocery store, but it's showing these really.
It's marketing.
The marketing really, it drives it. Yeah. And so he did a label that's like...
And we can say what that is, because I love that wine.
What?
Legit.
Yes, legit.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
And it's fantastic. I mean, if you haven't gotten a bottle, out here in Katy, I think all over Houston, most HEBs have it now, right?
HEB, thank you so much.
$40, somewhere around there?
Yeah, around 40, 45. Yeah, it's... and it's neat, and basically it's just...
and I thought you were brilliant just touching on that, because your marketing, I think, the label, you called it a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
It's from Tuscany?
It's from Tuscany. It's the southern tip of Chianti Classico. And so the thought process behind it was that so often, going back to the, makes me feel stupid, I don't know what it is. Typically, when people kind of feel that way in general about something, or they've had 1 or 2 bad experiences where they wanted to go in and try something great and spend some money on a bottle of wine and it didn't turn out to be what they wanted it to be, or they were let down, they automatically have in their head that now it's... I don't like Italian wine. I don't like a Chianti. I don't like... So there's all these objections that automatically pop in. And so before, if you just hand them a bottle of wine and it's an Italian label, then they're automatically going to go to all those places in their head before they're going to be like, I might like this.
Yeah. And that's exactly my point, because I've opened it up a few times for friends that are, I only drink Napa.
Yeah.
Give me something Cabernet Sauvignon. It's got to say Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah. And so I've had them over for dinner and said, we'll have a couple Napa cabs out, and then I'll throw that one in there and go, hey, how you like it? And they go, oh, who makes this in Napa? This is fantastic. And I'm going, you're drinking old world wine there.
Yeah,
It's a good gateway, to that, and to showing people all these other wines. And I think that was a point that they were trying to do, and that's a point that I do with my guests too. Wherever I've worked, is trying to help you not feel uncomfortable about something, and having some lead in, which I think is also a nice lead into the next wine. I think the next wine does this too. It's here's a French wine, but it's a little bit more approachable and easy to attack, and you hate that to see anybody, especially those of us who love wine or in the wine industry, either as a consumer or on whatever part you are, a supplier or a som or whatever. It's a really sad thing to see someone get something and feel uncomfortable, they have to have it,
right?
And they don't like it, and I hate that. I don't want that for my guests. I don't want that for my friends. I don't want that for myself.
Right.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. So one of the things that I always think is kind of interesting, and this is one of the things that Americans in general like to do. They like to think in boxes, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's another form of brainwashing that happens on the other side of the pond that's equally destructive, but at least it's kind of set in history. You know,
Sure.
one is that you just can't change.
Right.
Here, it's we want to put things into boxes and you kind of stick within those things. So one of the things that Americans kind of typically lean towards or have an affinity towards is going to be big fruit, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same point in time, they have a mentality to always think of wine as a cocktail, right? Like they're never thinking about what they're going to eat with it or
Right.
how it's going to affect what they eat with it. And the funny thing is, cuisine-wise for the U.S. in general would be highly benefited by most European wines because they're typically lower in alcohol and higher in acidity.
Right.
And so our diet tends to lead more towards fatty foods, fried foods, things like that. And that makes both of them sing equally together while you're doing them. And so that's just kind of the funny thing. And that's one of those things that's to think of opening a bottle of wine in Europe without food involved is kind of, you don't really.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, what the hell are you doing? You need to have some meat, some cheese, you need to have some something, right? And here it's very much just perceived that, you can drink
porch
in a box.
pounder. Yeah.
Exactly. And food might be involved and, it might get to that point at some point in time or whatever, but it would be really highly beneficial for more Americans to kind of give some European wines a shot. Because it'll benefit your life. It does.
Yeah, you've kind of taught me that, and that's where I lean more to is when I cook and have food and certain things, I try to drink old world wines with that. If friends just want to sit out back and have a glass, then maybe we pour something from Napa Valley.
Yeah,
because it stands, But
one of the interesting things you said earlier I was going to touch on was the whole Oregon and Burgundy kind of thing. So Domaine Drouhin's actually a pretty neat example, and it's they were like the 67th or 68th bonded winery in Oregon. And so they got started in 1982. So they're the first Burgundy producer to see the potential of what Oregon can be. And this is before Oregon was anything. And so them going over there, they made a steep investment of not just going over there and buying some land. They planted. And so it was 6 years before their first bottling. So 1988 was their first bottling. And so they've been there ever since. And they're still make some fantastic wines. Specialize in Pinot, just like they do there, and then to me, it's interesting. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, but it's for somebody who knows very small fingers that much about Burgundy, it's a little bit intimidating. It's a little bit overwhelming at first too to hear you say all this information, and I'm trying to process it and go, okay, try to figure it all out. But
we're all still trying to process it.
Yeah,
too,
that's the thing too.
We do for a living.
And that's really kind of the neat thing with wine in general. And the more you get into it, is that even me doing what I've done now, I've worked for an importer, been with them for 7 years in March. I was selling the wines almost 5 years prior for that. So I've known some of these brands for going on 12 years.
Yeah.
And so that's at least 12 vintages, if not more, because when I got started, there were probably a couple on the deck prior to that, And so I don't get tired of telling the stories of them because every year is a new story, right?
Yeah.
It's a new vintage, new weather. What might be relevant here, is now relevant here. You know
right.
what I mean? So it's an interesting thing that is always evolving.
And for me, I'll tell, people who are listening to this going, oh, maybe I need to try some old world wines and get into it a little bit. When I first asked you about it and you were nice enough to try to guide me a little bit, I was still very overwhelmed. Yeah. And I thought, man, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to kind of figure some of this out, just to a little bit,
Yeah.
So I kind of know what I'm looking for, maybe by grape varietal in certain regions.
Yeah.
But you do. I mean, just keep diving in, keep looking, keep buying stuff, keep kind of, getting educated on what you're drinking, what's in the glass, what makes that fruit.
Yeah.
So now I know, Rhone is going to be, your Grenache and your Syrahs and things like that.
Yeah,
and
typically spicy, a little salty, softer reds.
Left bank Bordeaux and right bank Bordeaux and understanding those kind of things and, Chateauneuf de Pape and same with Italy, understanding Piedmont is going to be your Barolos and your Barbarescos and Super Tuscans are in Tuscany and Sangiovese. And so I'm learning those kind of things and I know kind of grape varietals and I'm excited about that. Now I'm like, okay, now which producers are good? How do I know which one is a good value? I have two next to each other. They're both $45 and you go, that one's worth it. That one's not.
Yeah.
I don't know that yet. So I'm still trying to.
One of the really cool things that we could do on another show another day would be, and I've been wanting to do this for a long freaking time, and I think it's a really neat idea, is a mixed case. This isn't a new concept. great independent retailers do this. Some chain retailers do it, where they'll do a monthly subscription, but not like so much like a wine club. You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit more tailored, or at least a little bit more focused on wine instead of profitability for the place. And so Antonio is a really great one from Houston Wine Merchant. They do this every month. But basically, just do a hodgepodge, man, because there's classics, and one of the things that I think is going to be the thing that's going to happen the next 3 years is that everyone's going to gravitate back to the classics.
Okay.
And the new young
So what's considered the classics?
The classics are going to be Chianti, Bordeaux. You know, like those are two of the biggest ones that have really lost a lot of cachet for being cool. And
I'll tell you,
it's kind of crazy. It's
so
like absolutely crazy.
Tell me on Chianti.
Yes.
Does it have to be? Can it just be Chianti? Does it need to be Classico? Does it need to be Reserva?
Well, Classico is basically it's a tighter area, and so this is the original map, if you will. And so Chianti is one of the original places in the world that had wine governing laws, and so Hungary for Tokai. Chianti and Bordeaux are, I think, like the oldest ones as far as structure. I'm forgetting one right now. I know I am. It's either whatever. I can't think right now.
That's all right.
But anyways, but with that, over time, as things become more important, the typical maps get wider.
Okay.
Right? Because everyone wants a little bit more piece of the pie. They're
Sure.
like, we've been here too. Maybe we weren't included in that. So, like, let's redefine this, and now it's gotten a little bit wider. So, Classico just goes back to the original map.
Okay.
So, is there a point to it? Yeah, Chianti Classico is a little bit better.
And then
There's some
Reserva?
exceptions. Reserve is basically an aging. So, that's a different kind of category. It's a little bit more time in barrel or in bottle. And this is basically generalization for the world. And then typically they have like an extra 1% alcohol. And the reason that they have that is that typically these areas have been cold throughout history or cooler throughout history.
Or a little warmer.
And so
now.
the best areas get the more sunshine.
Okay.
And so there's always like, it needs to be like, 13.5 or whatever it might be from whatever region, right? And that indicates it has to be Reserva.
So is it fair to say good, better, best? Chianti,
Yeah,
Classico?
so like Chianti, and the other thing with Chianti is that there's zones within Chianti that are, it's just like Burgundy where you can start studying villages. It's like the same exact thing.
Okay.
And so each one of these ones have their own little personality. And then from those, stylistically, they play to that. They should taste like where they come from.
Okay.
And so it's due to elevation, it's due to soil content. It's basically the same grape varietal through it all in Chianti. But that's kind of where it's at, yeah. And so one of the best things, and I'll jump off Chianti here in a minute, but it's not well received, but I absolutely adore the Gran Selezione. So throughout time, Chianti has always done this thing to where they would kind of pick what they want to be their best wine, and then you could also, there was never, you needed to have one Grand Reserva or whatever it might be,
Right.
And so like some of these people would have like 4 under a different name, and you're like, well, which one's the best?
Yeah.
You know, so basically Gran Selezione in 2010 was the first vintage that was put out, and it's basically like, y'all need to circle this. Like, you can't make 5 of these things. Your best wine, estate fruit, single vineyard, 100% Sangiovese.
Okay.
That's a criteria, and then it goes to a tasting panel, and we got to prove it by your peers.
Oh, nice.
And so, to me, it's simplified Chianti in a lot of ways that it needed to be. And it's put Chianti, in my opinion, on a track to be an equivalent to Brunello di Montalcino, which it will eventually.
Sure.
And it should. Historically, it has way more history, has way more cachet throughout time. Brunellos are known in America very well for making super rich, beautiful wines from Sangiovese. And so Chianti can play the same game. They just need to focus on it and really focus in. And I think they're on track to do it finally. And make it in a way that's digestible.
Yeah.
Because no one needs to... I used to sell one winery, and they had 4 of them. And, like, literally, you know, what's the difference between the 4? I'm like, $20, $40, $80. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't remember the names. You know,
Yeah.
I'm selling the wines to people. You know what I mean? Like, if it's that difficult for me, it's impossible for the consumer.
That's to me is the hardest thing about old world wines is trying to get through all of that.
Yeah.
For guys and gals who say, I want to go explore it a little bit, it's just trying to figure out where to start. I'm lucky enough to have you guys who have helped me a little bit, so I appreciate that.
Cheers, man.
I think just to touch real quick on what he said about getting a mixed box or mixed bag. I know, like, for those of us who are studying and doing that type of thing, a lot of wine people or retailers will put together something for you and what is going to be considered classic and appropriate for the price point and for what it is for that region, so you know what it is, and it's so you blind it or you don't. I mean, depending on what kind of what you're needing out of it. But I know Antonio does it.
Yeah, he's
and
always
he
had a
does it
really
for,
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love, and I would have friends who would love to do that,
Yeah,
on a
so
monthly basis, just to kind of.
The idea I had behind it, and this was like a stupid thing, but this was like years ago. It was going to be like a case of the month, or what is that calling it? I want to say it was Case of the Mondays, but it wasn't. It was cases. Oh, it was called a case study.
Okay.
And so basically, the whole idea was to either grab a psalm and then give them $300, and they got to pick out 12 bottles in a wine shop,
Okay.
and then talk about the 12 bottles in the wine shop and why they picked these out and why they fit within these categories.
And was there any criteria to them prior to?
They could do whatever the hell they want with it, and I always thought that would be kind of a funny thing because like one person could grab maybe a $250 bottle and then 11 bottles of garbage.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean. Like they could do what they want with it, but I think the neat thing would be to do the classics and just kind of focus on things like there are certain areas in the world that just are totally under the radar that totally deserve it, and price point wise, apples to apples.
yeah.
Dollar-wise, it's not even close. And so one of my favorite regions for Italy, my two favorites, they're kind of off the radar, Alto Adige and then also Sardinia. And so with Sardinia, there's just some really spectacular red wines that are Grenache, Italian Grenache, Cannonau. And, they sit under $25 a bottle. And, I'll put them against 90% of the stuff I can get higher end from the Rhone that's Grenache based, and it's going to be the crap out of it.
Really?
Yeah, most of anything that comes from California in general has gone through the roof. It's like,
And that's where you've educated me the
crazy.
most.
It's crazy.
Just bang for your buck.
yeah,
It's old world.
yeah.
Which is the next bottle that we're doing. That is the
Yeah.
best bang for your buck, I think, area.
Which one is that? What are we talking about
Coming
next?
from Rhone.
Yeah, jump into it.
So this is Domaine Saint Duc. This is Le Haut-Garrigue. Is the area, so it's from Gigondas, which is going to be southern Rhone. It's predominantly Grenache, about 60% or so, and about 40% Mourvedre. Winery's been around since 1874. They are pretty hands-off. Like, it's all wild yeast fermentation. They do mostly whole cluster with most of their bottles. All hand-picked fruit.
This is old school farming.
It's totally old school. They haven't changed it much. 6 generations in the family. They've been doing this. They have a couple different bottles. Like, this is their Gigondas. They've got a Rhone. I think they have another higher end that our market sees. But I think bang for your buck and kind of as an intro from like into old world, I always thought Rhone was a good way to go.
Yeah.
Because you've got the fruit.
Right.
You have fruit, but then you still have a little that earthiness and tannin and things like that, and a little bit of a little bit of acidity, but not like through the roof like we're coming from Burgundy with great acid. So I always think that's
it's a good transition for people from New World. And, I agree. And that might be because I started in Napa myself. That's one of my favorite regions and one of my favorite wines. That's probably why I feel that.
This is my first time having this, and it is awesome.
Yeah.
It is really, really awesome. I like Gigondas in general. I was thinking about this stuff this morning. This was one of the fun things to kind of, you learn X amount through time, and then how much you get to apply, in a journal moment or, analogies or whatever else that, become obvious later that you don't really think about because you don't see a lot of new stuff from my side often. You know what I mean? I taste a lot of new stuff all the time, but I never really dig into information about it. But no, I was thinking about this morning. So, like, the Gigondas is like I don't want to go back to little brother as far as a word, but
it's a little brother.
It's a little brother. It's a little brother to Chateauneuf. And so it's they make spectacular wines. It's one of the few villages that's been elevated from Côte-Rhône, and Côte-Rhône with a hyphen behind it, and then Gigondas. And so they got bumped up in the 70s. And so they've always made great wines there, but it's kind of cool to see their name on the front of the label, and there's a reason that they earned that.
So you talking about, this being kind of that little brother to Chateauneuf makes me think, I hear some people say coming from New World to Old World.
Yes.
Not approachable. If you buy Old World, you got to find something older, or you've got to be willing to lay it down for a while. That's changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit.
So basically, through global warming is real, and so with that, there's riper wines now, kind of in general.
But aren't Old World kind of changing some of their techniques too? I mean,
Yeah,
I heard
so that's
Barolo is kind of
they've moved more towards barrique, and so like smaller barrel and stuff like that. One of the greatest wine analogies I've ever heard in my life, and it was like my aha moment. So it's like I'm trying to remember even how long this ago. This like maybe 9 years ago. Texon's a massive conference up in Dallas, considered the most prestigious wine conference in the world now. And so there's tons of master somms up there. They do these amazing conferences, really cool seminars, whatever. And so one of the coolest ones I ever went to was Modern versus Traditional Barolo with Shirley Lindgren, who's the head person for A16. Super huge somebody, most largest authority for Italian wine on the West Coast by a mile. And then the other person was Bobby Stuckey, who's just, he's a beard magnet, James Beard magnet. Like the guy has set the bar for hospitality in America. And like he's humble pie about it. He still calls himself like the best busser in America. It's like his thing. And the guy is like the most respected. So anyways, it was these two people. And he's a super authority on Italian wine. He has Frasca and Boulder. And then him and his business partner, Lachlan. Yeah, they have, what's their pizza place called? Locale. Pizza Locale.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're starting to do chains of these outside of Colorado. I think eventually they're going to be on the map to be outside of Colorado. There might be a few now. But just amazing place. And they also have their own winery called Scarpetta. And Scarpetta is fantastic from Friuli, so they have a passion to be there. Anyways, long story short, the whole point of this whole story was at the seminar, Bobby Stuckey gets up there and he starts talking about it. And he goes... when Barolo went to Barrique, a smaller barrel with oak influence, to be released earlier, more fruity, basically, it was like when Dylan went electric. And I was all like, dude, like that's perfect. Yes.
Damn.
And so, but it is that, there's a more modern style to winemaking. You can call it like a lot of people call it like the Parkerization, right, of wine. Basically, people were hunting scores. They wanted to find out what would happen to a critic's palate instead of making the wines that were traditionally made there. There's a lot of argument to all that stuff. I think more of it's global warming, man. People got more fruit. It's better to integrate. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
I've heard that from even younger people that, I want to buy it, I want to take it home, and I want to drink it.
Uh-huh.
A lot of younger people drinking wine, and I'm sure it's not... I'm generalizing a little bit. I'm sure there's some that don't just do that. But for the most part, they don't have 300 bottles at their house. They maybe have 4 or 5, and whatever they buy, they want to drink over the weekend. Yeah.
You're buying it when you go to the grocery store. When you're getting
for the weekend,
cooking for whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's some statistic about how quickly wine gets drank from a shelf. Like something like 80% of wine gets drank in like 24 hours or something like that. It's like some crazy statistic.
That's kind of what I heard. Is that it's very quickly. So I think people think if I want to drink wine right now, I've got to get something California, something New World.
It's a valid argument. Yeah. But and that was probably a more valid argument 10 years ago.
That's what I would say.
Since then a lot's kind of changed. We're not on the Bordeaux yet, but one of the interesting things with Bordeaux is that you can still find a lot of older Bordeaux for
decent
relatively
price.
Inexpensive. You know what I mean? And it has the age on it, the flavor patina, like they're ready to drink.
So
they're interesting.
I'm going to hit you on that. Yeah. When you say relatively inexpensive, for the listener that goes, okay, what the hell does that mean? What would that price give us a range? My thing is
like fine wine can exist at $10. Okay. And so like, is there a lot of fine wine at $10? No.
You're going to find
but are there gems? Absolutely. Yeah. And there's this is the whole thing. Like half of studying and caring about this stuff is that like it's rewarding, and there's a lot of people that can make a lot more money doing other things that are really smart in the wine business, and they stay in this because they love it and they found ways to make it work financially for them. And a lot of it's under $20 wine that just fucking rocks.
Yeah.
And so, or going to tastings all the time and getting to drink dumb shit that not even the uber wealthy could afford. But
really,
a lot of these kind of opportunities. Yeah. And so like. So fine wine can exist at $10. It's not often. Basically, $15 to $20 for a decent red should exist, and it does. And I could probably do a list for 50 wines that are under $25 that are fucking rocking.
So I was going to say $30. If you can get something, there's a lot.
$25 that you could fucking kill.
Okay.
Like you could impress anybody with these wines. For $25, and that's one of those things. And this is my most valid argument I have with Napa. And like, it's not that I hate Napa. I like old Napa, and I like more balanced Napa. You know what I mean? And I'm not knocking all of it, but like, if someone comes out the gate and they existed for 36 months as a winery and their wine's $400 a bottle, that's Burgundy money.
Yeah.
I'm never going to spend that money. I'm never going to enjoy that bottle of wine
I got to taste a really cool bottle of wine yesterday, and I love the producer, but it was right out the gate. It was Grange, and it was 2014. So it's the most famous wine from Australia. Fantastic bottle of wine, but those wines are, what are you talking about, 24 hours, man? Those wines aren't to be touched for 15 to 20 years minimum, you know? And drinking at 14, it was...
Yeah, those are $800 bottles. Grange is $800 for...
Like the new vintages, out the gate,
So you got to lay them down.
You got to lay them down, but people pop them now. And
They're
one
awesome.
of
They're tannins.
we're going on tangents
So
now,
tight.
but this is really funny to me. One year, I'm like, I don't know who's going to listen to this. They might get pissed off, whatever. So, anyways, they entered, and nothing wrong with the rodeo. The rodeo is awesome. It's great for charity. It's great for Houston. It's great for all the above. The wine event has really elevated the wine consumption and knowledge in Houston by quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I respect the organization, all of that. But to me, it was so comical that one year Grange was submitted and won like a silver or something. And so if you medal and you get picked, you have to donate like a case to 2 cases to Best Bites. And so I'm like walking around, I'm seeing that they have 2 cases of Grange sitting on the table. And I'm all like, and once again, this needs 15 years. You know what I mean? I'm all like, and this is just got released like 2 months ago or whatever. I was like, why is this open? Like, they're like, now it's, people need to try it. I'm like, but they're not trying it. You know what I'm saying?
They're not getting what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all hoisin, concentrated, and oaky at that point, as it's settled.
But they're gonna, these people are gonna go, I love it, it's great, it's fantastic, because they just don't know any better.
Yeah, or they see a price
because
like, I
that's
need
what I
to
mean.
like this.
Because it's Grange, it's at that price point.
Yeah.
How can it not be fantastic whenever you open it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone's winning something, I mean, how long was it before Screaming Eagle was got like the 100 points and all that? Like, what?
Oh, yeah.
How long were they open? And then, I mean, they're paying so much money.
Was it $500 a bottle or something like
Oh,
that?
Screw Me, it was way more than that now.
Oh no, I'm thinking of 100 Acres.
Yeah, 100 Acre. Then what's the one that always kind of got me, and I've had the wine probably like 9 times, and I've never. It's just not me. You know what I mean? Same thing with 100 Acre. I went to 100 Acre tasting one time, and I was happy to be there. I was really happy that all the wines were up, and I got to taste through all of them. I would not buy those wines, but that's just me personally.
Because of the price.
Well, the price, but I can never justify it. But then also, like profile-wise, it's not me. You
Okay,
know what
too
I mean?
fruity,
like, too fruity, too glycerol. Like,
not enough.
If it comes off, and if I put my nose in the glass, and I smell Sharpie.
Yeah.
Like I'm out. Like I don't need to be there. And so like that's one of those ones that was really kind of crazy. And the other one's Scarecrow. Scarecrow is the one that's like insanely sought after. Not bad wines. They're good wines. They're really good wines, but like they need time.
Yeah.
And
everyone buys them and drinks them.
I can't drink a bottle of it. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't get past like how, and that's and profiles change. I mean, like as you get more into something, you start looking for these things, and as you have more, and that's great. And everyone starts somewhere and all this, but I guess maybe for the money. But yeah, Scarecrow for me is just. I'm like struggling to get through a glass, and this is from somebody who drinks wine for a living and tastes wine for a living and talks about it for a living, and that's not. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And like like almost that sugary content, tone to it, which don't get me wrong, I love some gorgeous, sweet wines. There's some beautiful ones out there. But they have balance, they have sweetness, and then they have acidity. And this is just like, woof.
Yeah, too much.
Like, I guess it's almost when you go to like nice dark chocolate or something like that, and then you try to go back to like
A milk chocolate?
a milk chocolate.
And you're like,
thing,
no
and you're
thanks.
just like, it's like here's your Snickers, and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, compared to like something that's got like all these different elements and bite and all
Structure
this stuff.
and yeah. So I've found 2 producers, and tell me if you've heard of them in Napa, that I think are making more of an old world style of wine. One is Mathiasen.
I love Matthias.
Yeah, Matthias's fantastic. Yeah.
I've picked up some of theirs, and I'm like, okay, this is old world. This is not typical Napa Cab. And the other one was Pistone.
Pistone, I don't know. Maybe we'll
Man.
pick out a bottle here in a minute if you have
It
one. So I can
really-
jog my mind.
I don't know.
Really, like, makes me think old world. I mean, if you poured it, and I would say, okay, this is old world. It's not.
Matthiasen's really neat. Like, I got to meet Steve, I guess, twice now. He's a neat guy, but he's super nice. He's super
He has
respected.
his kid like pouring wine at a
Yeah.
tasting, like teaching him about everything.
Really?
Like, oh yeah.
Okay.
So he has I'm gonna misquote this shit. I'm sure of it, but he was kind of one of the inspirations for kind of the In Pursuit thing, right?
Yeah,
The In Pursuit of Balance, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he was kind of the Napa version of it. So that's a big thing with Roger Parr that they did. Shit, a long time ago now.
I think it's been done for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It was about
basically getting away from the alcohol and pursuing more balance.
It's exactly what they're doing. I mean, the alcohol is like 13.2, 13.5.
His Napas are awesome. One of my favorite things he does a Ribolla for white wine. It's an Italian grape varietal from Italy that like basically no one grows in California.
Really?
And the freaking wines are fantastic. And it's basically what Abundant Sunshine can do with these grape varietals to where it doesn't come off as a notches. They're still mineral driven. There's acidity there. They're clean. Really pretty wines. The other thing is too that they're not astronomical.
Yeah,
which I can appreciate because he's not an old producer.
The white,
it's like you feel good buying it. You're not like, oh, fuck.
And the reds
that's what's important to me. Yeah.
Just to put a little plug in for Steve, like what they did after Harvey for us, for Houston specifically.
Okay, I didn't know about this. So great.
So they're going to take, and it's all gone now, but I think 100% of the profits that he made from the white wine, their one white, which is a Ribolla blend, we're going to go to Harvey rescue efforts and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're just an incredible family, and it's they lost how much, 80% of that wine the year before in the earthquake in California. And it's like the one wine he had like he got everything in barrel. Like they're tasting everything like this is going to be it. This is going to be our wine. Earthquake hit. And you see these pictures of him and his wife and his kid, like, I think he's got
barrel smashed.
Yeah, just smashed everything. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Because it is, I mean, that is, like we were talking about Burgundy earlier. I mean, things like this happen. And that is, I mean, that's your
like
year's worth of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing too, not necessarily is high alcohol bad. Like we're not saying
balance.
That. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's going to be the balance in the wine. You sometimes have to have it up a little bit just to.
Yeah. I mean, acidity is great when it's in balance with everything else, and I think that's what I think these wines are showing, all three of them, kind of what they are. You've got, and we're going, for the listeners, we're going on a lighter style.
Yep.
To the Rhone, which is like textural and almost like licking velvet backwards with that tannin and like a little fruit and spice. And then I haven't tasted
That'll be the last one.
Yeah, so going back, the whole tangent and jumping off this shit was about analogies. And so like one of the analogies, going back to the whole little brother thing, was basically Jig Dos is considered kind of the middle between Côte d'Rhône, which is about 90% for the region, and then Châteauneuf, which is considered the best for the Southern Rhone. And the Rhone's really kind of interesting because it goes into two departments. You're never going to see on a map where it says Northern Rhone and Southern Rhone unless it's not an official map. You know what I'm saying? It's just that we all understand what that means. And so Southern Rhone is going to be Grenache-based reds for the most part. They still do some white. They do a little bit of rosé, but for the most part, it's going to be reds and Grenache-based. The North is going to be Syrah-based reds. And then for the white, they do Viognier and Marsanne and Roussanne. And so in the North, basically, the most varietals you'll ever see out there is probably about 5.
Okay.
For the most part. So basically, you have the Syrah, Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne, and then occasionally something else will pop up there in someone's vineyard or something like that. They'll see other ones, but for the most part, that's all you're ever going to see. In the South, there's 13 grape varietals that are permitted. And Châteauneuf was actually the blueprint for the AOC.
I remember.
France.
Yeah.
And so they got started in 23. The AOC officially got launched and replicated that formula for the rest of France for all the regions in 1936. So they were at 13 years at that point. And the funniest thing to me is that, like, how the hell Châteauneuf was, like, the blueprint model when basically, like, most regions, you could say, like, maybe 3 or 4 grape varietals are permitted, per, like, appellation. Like, Châteauneuf is, like,
13?
Fucking pistols out, like fucking 13 grape varietals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what did they say? You know what I mean? Like, basically grow within this box and you can use whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just funny that was the blueprint for France to like do all these AOCs. So,
yeah.
Sorry for the cussing.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, it cracks me up. I'm like, how the hell was that the one? Like, we were like, they're doing it right.
Yeah, this is our model.
Yeah, we need to circle this in, So like, it's just kind of funny. And so, Grenache is just like one of those really fun varietals. And earlier we were talking about, ready to drink. Cote Rhone is not something I would look. Cote Rhone is most of the production for Southern Rhone, and they're fantastic wines, and they're most of the time ready to go right out the gate. They're not kissed by oak for the most part. Most of the time they're just straight fruit, which can be really exciting, especially with Grenache. I love Grenache as just a great varietal. It doesn't always need oak to find kind of what it needs to be, and it just really shows really pretty. It's always got that little kind of like raspberry. They typically can be light as Pinot, and so
They can be.
Oh yeah, man, you can like totally transparent, like almost like a lot heartier rosé.
Really?
Yeah, one of my favorite producers for the U.S. and like I stand by this wholeheartedly, and probably top 5 producer for me in the whole U.S. is Tribute to Grace. Like those wines are absolutely freaking fantastic. And they specialize in Rhone from Santa Barbara, they specialize in Grenache from Santa Barbara.
Okay.
These wines are awesome, but when you see them, it looks like a hearty rosé almost. They're almost.
And one of the reasons I told you, I mean, I love Gigondas and that region, Rhone specifically. And one of the reasons I told you I'm looking and trying to explore more of Paso Robles is coming to find out as I read about it, they're doing more Rhone styles there, and I thought that's going to be a region I might enjoy, as long as price point they're not beating me up too much.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot to be enjoyed there, I think. And I think kind of the American palate for the U.S. I think Paso is going to gain a lot more attention in the next few years. Was it Dow? How do you say it?
Dow is there.
D-A-O-U.
Yeah, Dow's fantastic. It's stylistically kind of not my jam, but the funniest thing is that like as many people that I know that travel the world and seen kind of everything, all the wine meccas of the world, that have been there as well, they'll say that's the prettiest winery they've ever seen.
Really?
Like that's fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
Because it's in Paso.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
Like,
yeah.
There's a story. I don't know the story on it. Weren't they like the half owners of Justin, or they sold Justin, or?
I honestly, I'm trying to remember what it.
There's something with that. They were big owners in something, and they moved away or sold it or something.
I'm totally blanking.
I've never been to Paso.
I've never been either.
Okay, so I'm assuming though it doesn't have the mountains. Maybe it has just more hills.
A lot of people in the wine business, especially the European side, kind of knock it because it's hot as shit, and so like.
Well, it is hot.
It's supposed to be. Most of Paso is like super freaking hot.
Okay.
I don't know what the average is on that.
Yeah.
And so they stylistically they can make a very very ripe wine.
Okay.
At a very inexpensive price because the price of land isn't Napa. It's not even Sonoma. You know what I mean? It's
right.
not like. I'm not talking about Pinot Country Sonoma. I'm talking about Cab Country Sonoma.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, 'cause
apples to apples.
Typically, when people think California wine, they think Sonoma. They think Napa Valley.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the first 2 places you go to.
Yes.
So.
And that's one of my things. My probably favorite region, California. I don't know. There's probably a couple. Anderson Valley, I love.
That's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, cool climate. I like cool climate. I like mineral-driven wines.
Yeah.
And they do a fantastic job. They're not on people's radar, even though they've been around for forever. And then Santa Barbara.
That's what I'm hearing more and more
Santa
about
Barbara,
Santa
man.
Barbara.
I've never been, but I love the wines from there.
My wife and I went there last June it would have been, and really enjoyed it. I mean, didn't know what we were doing or where we were going, but we went through and explored a whole bunch and found some things that we liked. So it's pretty cool. I just didn't know a lot about it.
What do you think of the wines?
These are 3 of my favorites. So,
obviously
I love these wines.
Just a little thing, since we are Texas and we're barbecue, I always think that Rhone and Gigondas in particular are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's smoky and.
Yeah. It definitely plays. It 100% plays.
But enough acid to kind of where you're not just eating like all that rich. Oh no. Barbecue.
That's a good note for people to think about, because I think too many people just want to stay California Cab and they don't need to. They need to explore.
This is the thing I always like to break down for, I don't want to say novice, I hate that fucking word, but the new wine drinker, even someone that's been drinking wine a long time, and why they should pay attention to acidity, is when you have food, especially like a fatty food or something like that, the acidity cleans your palate. It's basically, it can turn every bite into your first bite, because that first bite's the best one, especially with like something that's greasy saturation that is absolutely delicious.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially like champagne and fried chicken and stuff like that. Whatever it might be, just that fatty thing, and that's what makes it so freaking good. And then it makes the wine go brighter because it's cutting through it, and then you're getting the wine for the first time again.
You're getting the food for the first time again.
Right.
You're switching flavors, and they play with each other. And so it's like, once you have your kind of like your first like big wine and food kind of like magic, you don't go back. And then you just start to like keep playing with it. And the funny thing is, like, it could be total opposite too. Like, one of the things I love to do, like, probably more than anything else, is Szechuan and freaking wine. Like, I freaking love spicy food in general.
Yep.
Grew up in Texas. I love spicy. You can't hurt me with spice. I can eat a freaking habanero like an apple.
Yeah.
Like, I freaking love spice. But Szechuan is really interesting because the kind of go-to things people would say would be like, you need something that's has a lot of residual sugar or something like that that can kind of clean it up, because you're not really looking for acid. It's heavy as hell in acid.
Right.
But the neat thing is, it goes with a whole variety of wines, but also like some of the things that you wouldn't think. Like some of the chunkier, more American wines actually play quite well because they're low acid. And so it throws fat on your palate, basically. And then the wine, and then the food cleans it up.
Right.
So it's going
It's
opposite.
a reverse of, yeah.
It's going opposite. And so like some of the most magical experiences have been like Old Semi from freaking Sonoma.
Yeah.
Or like freaking some Aubryon Blanc, or like just things you would never ever think of. Mind you, like great German wine has done well. You know, great freaking Austrian wine has done well. Like the things that what Psalms would automatically kind of lean towards do well, but like
There's some outliers there.
yeah, there's always like that, and that's the neat thing with like food and wine pairings. You know, you figure it out.
So what are some of your favorites with spicy Asian food?
Spicy, and this is the funny thing, because there's a lot of Psalms or just people in general that know wine that just, and it all depends where you grow up. Most Europeans can't handle spice. They just cannot. They're not built for it. They never had it. You know what I mean? Some absolutely adore it and want to lean towards it, but for the most part, a lot of them can't handle it.
Okay.
But for me, it's like, you know, drink what you like at the same point in time. I mean, German wine obviously always goes well. You know, maybe you can get something with some definite RS in the bottle, Spatlesen and up, as far as Auslesen, keep going up. Those are always fun. And the really neat things with those is that you can do a lot of them.
Okay.
Because the higher in sugar they get, the lower in alcohol they get.
Really?
And so I just had this really magical experience in Vegas. The only thing I ever wanted to do in Vegas was go to Lotus of Zion. That was it. I didn't want to ever go to a show. I didn't want to see a fucking casino. I don't gamble. Nothing. The only thing I've ever wanted to do was to go to this Thai restaurant because they have this crazy selection of Riesling. And it's Thai food. I love Thai food. It's
Yeah.
spicy-ass food and all this stuff. So that's literally what we did on Tuesday night. We went there. I think we had 7 bottles of wine in total. And then we had some O2 Lanson champagne and a bunch of cool dry Rieslings as well, not just on the sweet side. So we had a couple of Grossgewächs, and then
So champagne's good with Asian
champagne can
spicy
be
food.
great. I'm a big bubbles head, so I'm always going to lean towards bubbles.
Yeah.
And so going back to just kind of my trademark of what I'm looking for in a wine in general, if anything I'm going to buy or want to drink is typically going to be white wine. I do drink a lot of reds when it hits me, but it's typically doesn't.
So you're a white wine guy.
White wine particularly, yes. 100%.
Lexey?
Love, white. Bubbles always. You're never too hungover for bubbles.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But I mean, like,
that's curious to me because you always think, yeah, white wine's cool, a glass before dinner, but red wine's where it's at.
Red wine's like it's the mainstream thought of when people think of wine, they automatically go red.
Yeah.
And then if they think bubbles, they think celebration. You know what I mean? It's not typically played to like a particular moment of something. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's just boxes once again. You know what I mean? And this is nothing fine. This is nothing new. It's fine. But to me, white wine is where it's at. Like,
Okay.
so intriguing. White
yeah,
wine can
white Burgundy. Like I'm a white Burgundy slut, man. Like my oldest son's middle name is Charlemagne, and it's because of a Grand Cru.
Really?
Charlemagne. Yes.
So I need to get more educated in white wine because I know, maybe a Chardonnay, a Pinot Grigio, and a Sauvignon Blanc. And then I'm kind of like...
But the thing is, there's elevated versions of all those.
Okay.
And that's what makes it really interesting. And so...
I love Chardonnay.
Yeah,
We're
Chardonnay can be
talking about white
fantastic.
Burgundy.
Yeah. So that's a Chardonnay, a white Burgundy.
Yeah.
Or,
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
yeah. Aligote is another one. And then in one specific little satellite region, you can do Sauvignon Blanc too.
And Chablis.
And,
But those we can get here.
We can get here, yeah.
Okay.
So most anything you buy white Burgundy is going to be Chard.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
There's
what we're
varying
referring
forms of
to
it,
mostly.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the 3 kind of crown gems as far as villages for white Burgundy are going to be Chassagne, Pouligny, and then Meursault.
Okay.
And so those are kind of your big 3. Meursault is big and fat, and so it's a chunky one that would appeal to probably more American chard drinkers.
and so it's a little bit leans more towards like butter, bacon fat, stuff like
Okay.
that. The oak influence is there, but it's not like front and center, and it's a lesser of the two other ones. So the other two touch, and that's going to be Chassagne and Pullini.
Okay.
This is where the Grand Crus are held for white Burgundy between these two, and then they split Le Montrachet, which is the latter part of both of their names. And so there's just some spectacular wines. Like Chassagne tends to be a little bit more sassy, I guess. Pullini a little bit more focused. Like
That's a good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of my other little favorite regions that isn't totally, or not regions, as far as appellations for Burgundy, that doesn't get a whole lot of respect, but particular producers can make them exceedingly well, and then they drink like a little brother's Chassagne.
Oh, really?
And so that's like Saint Aubin is basically, it's very in line with like what Chassagne does, but it's just, you know, less expressive, less driven, less focused, but blind you'd be like, this is a really great bottle of wine. And so yeah, Burgundy's fun, man. Like,
So here's a question for you.
Yeah. We keep going
For
back to Burgundy.
for the people like me who want to go out and start exploring and checking out old world wine. I mean, I'll be honest, and if I go to Total Wine,
yeah.
sometimes I don't trust the people who are pushing the wines on me.
You have to have trust and faith, and
So how do you
wouldn't say
develop that, and where are the best places in Houston to buy old world wine?
This is a thing that I shouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, but I
Okay.
will. But no, because this is an interesting thing, and the only thing I'll say to this is find someone that you can trust, and this sucks because it takes a little investment. Sometimes you can get like a leg up by, you know, Antonio's your guy you need to see over at freaking Houston Wine Market.
Yeah, he's been
Anything
great.
he touches or suggests is going to be gold. Like
And
he
I
doesn't-
liked him because he's absolutely going to say, what's your budget? What do you want to
Yeah.
spend? And then
Yeah.
he steers you right in that
Yes.
in that
I
price
love
range.
that man to death. Like,
Yeah.
I've known him a long time, and like one of the funniest things for me is that what is considered uber cool now, he was doing like in, you know,
Really?
10 years ago.
Wow.
You know, and it was all like,
Yeah.
we don't know what to do with this. You know, he's like doing. He was a wine director at Catalan with Chris Shepard.
Okay.
And so that was, in my opinion, top 3 restaurant ever in Houston. It was absolutely fantastic. They had a very serious grower champagne program. They had a sherry menu that paired up with stuff on the menu.
Oh, I forgot
Yeah,
about
the
that.
rabbit and sherry. They did the
Yes.
foie gras bonbons. Like the food was spectacular.
Now you're going to be making people hungry.
Well, this is the funniest thing was like in the wine business, we always wanted rosé to be a thing. Like it was our thing.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever bought into it. Even the wine buyers that wanted to support it would never do it because basically we had more than 2 selections. You're going to be trying to burn that stuff out in like this time of the year before the next thing gets released. And you only bought 2 cases, but no one's touching it. Antonio, back in the day at Catalan, he had a full page of rosé.
Really?
Yeah, and so like I used to sell North Berkeley and a whole bunch of other different things, and we would do these little releases and like Beaujolais Cru Rosé, like crazy unique
Really?
things that just wine geek stuff. But no one would ever take the interest in it or try to promote it because basically they order 2 or 3 cases of it, and then when it comes in, this is not going to be a moneymaker. They're not making hundreds of dollars on this. This wine costs them $15. They're selling it for $30. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all passion, and so. One of the funniest nights, I came into Catalan and I just sold a ton of wine for one of my producers. And so he wanted to celebrate. He's like, where do you want to go? I go, Catalan, you know, like, this is, you know, you want to thank me? Let's go to Catalan. We're going to order nothing but appetizers twice. And then we're going to order some bottles of wine. And so we get in there and start sending through the list. He's like, you want to do Quilceda Creek, which is a very expensive Washington wine. You know, you want to do this champagne? I was like, you want to do like 8 bottles of rosé? Like, we're not going to drink them all, but like, you want to do that? It'll be the same price. He's just like, that sounds awesome. I'm like, let's do that.
There you go.
And so, but he's always been a big champion of this stuff, and so it's really kind of funny because he always had it right. You know what I mean? It's kind of neat to kind of see when that stuff kind of comes mainstream. You know?
And I don't mind giving a plug to Antonio over at Houston Wine Merch.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to want to explore Old World, it's in Houston. You're going to have to, if you're in Katy or some of the other surrounding areas.
Yeah.
Drive into Houston, look it up. You can Google it, find the address, but go in and just ask for him.
Yeah.
He's there most of the time.
Yeah.
And he will definitely walk you through any region, any type of wine you're into.
He's an Italian junkie.
Yeah.
But he can do anything. He knows Burgundy. He knows.
I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
Like I worked for him at Catalan years and years and years ago too. I mean,
and just a super guy. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
just,
He's a great
he's
human.
awesome. He's
yeah.
awesome.
I mean, when I went in and visited with him, I just said, "Hey, Jeremy told me to come in. I want Burgundy. Help me out."
Yeah.
And I mean, he just we were an hour, and
Yeah.
he was just walking me through and
He
talking
shows
to
me
me.
wines I've never even seen.
Really?
Today.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go in there. That's the one person, like, once you've been in the business for a while, you have a really hard problem paying for wine. Like, it's not that you want everything as samples, but, like, there's a certain amount of friends that you make to where you can be like, all right, you know, you work for this guy, I work for this guy. You know, I just sold a lot of this. Maybe I got an extra sample bottle. Let's trade for that. You know, whatever.
So to that point,
Yeah.
educate me, and if we need to cut this out, we can.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
You say it's hard for you to pay whatever for wine.
Yes.
As a guy who likes to buy wine and,
Yeah.
and have it in the house,
Yeah.
to go to a restaurant and look at a wine list and go, okay, I know I pay X amount of dollars for that when I buy it, and it's 3 times. What's fair? What should somebody as a consumer say?
You are in the greatest city in the U.S. for this.
Okay.
It's not even fucking close, man.
Okay.
I cover 6 states, and I see a lot of the U.S., right? I'm in 6 states consecutively. One, we have a really cool BYOB thing for some really amazing restaurants here.
We do, and that's my favorite thing to do.
That's my favorite thing to do as well. And, like, it's absolutely fantastic.
And I'm happy to pay a corkage fee.
Exactly, all damn day. Even
Every
if it's
day.
$20, I don't want to do that, but I'll do it occasionally. You know what I mean?
Most of them around here, I pay $10-15 a bottle.
Exactly, and some of them 5. And the thing
Yeah.
is, too, if you go there often enough, typically they waive it because
Yeah.
they know you're going to be in there 3 times a week. or
And
whatever
bring
it may
people.
be.
I take people.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so Houston, and huge shout out to Grant Cooper and Charles Clark, because they were the guys that put this thing in motion, and they did it in a day when wine was not prevalent in the U.S. They were big wine people, and so in 2001, yeah, you got it, yeah. So in 2001, these guys were their front and center to do this, and so when they opened up Ibiza in Midtown, and I wasn't here in 2001. I moved here in 2002. I didn't know of Ibiza until probably 2005. Before I knew even what it was. But I know the story, and I know I worked for these guys years and years ago, and I respect the hell out of them. But what they did, and what shaped the city today for fine wine, and one of the reasons that we're such a big player in the country, is they did a 1.6 markup on wine and then Ibiza. And so since then, it's hard to walk into Ibiza and look down the tables and not see people with glasses of wine, if not bottles of the wine. If not a third of the restaurant to half the restaurant any day at lunch.
Really?
And we're talking 200 covers every day at lunch.
Okay.
Right? And the really kind of sad thing is that they're about to close Ibiza. And that's the original hub, and they're going to rebrand it and reopen, right? Mm-hmm. But anyways, the whole point of the story is that they literally shaped Houston's wine prices for the whole industry and set a par level that was not seen in the U.S. anywhere. They did that.
Really?
And so it's blessed to be in here. I can stomach paying for wine in Houston.
Yeah.
For the most part.
There's some restaurants I go to, and I'm like, okay, that's a great price for that bottle. I don't mind paying.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm going to pay more than what I would pay for it at retail.
Yeah.
I don't mind paying for it. I mean, you're still servicing me. You're pouring it. Your glasses.
You will rarely ever see 3 times in Houston.
Okay.
I have
And
a
that's kinda
strong
standard.
comment on that.
Go ahead, Lexey.
A very strong comment from someone who works in restaurants and from everywhere from a wine bar to steakhouses to all that. It depends on where you are too.
Okay.
Like, and what you're paying. So people see something, they're like, well, I know what this costs here. I'm like, well, there's a lot of other things that are being folded into, and restaurants operate on a very
margins.
slim margin.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, restaurants fail every day, right? And these margins are so slim, it's ridiculous. So yes, we have these amazing restaurants and this amazing BYOB program, but you also have to recognize exactly where you are and what you're covering and why, from glass breakage to cleaning to paying for a SOM or a team of SOMs to time of storage of how much you're holding on to something, like how much product are you actually turning at any given point to that. So I think that it's recognizing that, like, you know, where you are and what you're doing.
And I'm trying to figure out what's the fair point. Where are you? Because I know I'm going to pay more, but sometimes I'll go to run one restaurant and say a bottle that I can buy retail is $50, and they're selling it for $80, and I go, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But then there's other restaurants I'll go and I know it's $50 and they've got it for $145, and I go, I'm not going to buy that.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm trying to figure out where's
to me, a problem. When I sit down at a restaurant I've never been to, I will dig through their list.
Yeah.
And I will shut up and not talk to anybody, and I will look at it like a damn book for 45 minutes, and I'm going to find what I'm going to find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to find the damn deals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to feel comfortable with what I'm going to buy.
And I try to do that. I'm not as good at it. I know I'm not as you, but that's what I try to do. I have seen a restaurant that I like to go to, and I'm not going to say the name of this one, but I would buy a bottle of wine that was one of my wife's and I's. We like to drink it, and it would be $60 retail, and they were selling it for just under $100, and we were fine with that.
Yeah.
And then they got a level 1 som that got hired, and that same bottle went to like $165, and I went, okay, I don't. Is that right or is that not right? I mean, I don't know.
To me, it's like, you know, the threshold of what people pay is going to be what it's going to be.
Okay.
Like one of my buddies, and this is like a really off-candid fucking story you're about to hear. I'm sorry for my cussing. But I really think
fire away, man. I'm going to mark this as adult content, so you're good.
Yeah. So like, well, this is like the funny thing. So one of my buddies, he worked with a Brooklyn chef, and so basically, Brooklyn chef moved somewhere down in the Caribbean and like opened up this restaurant that's very like Instagram worthy.
Okay.
His bottle of like Santa Margarita is like $185 a bottle of PG, the Pinot Grigio.
$185.
Yeah. And so like the food is like whatever. It looks pretty to Instagram, but no one's eating there because they're all fucking doing blow in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And so none of that matters.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, you're probably gonna edit this out, which is probably good. I don't care if we do or don't. But just FYI, but no, it's just kind of funny. It's like what people want to pay is what's going to set the limit. If people said no, then they would do that.
Right. I get that. People are paying that price.
Well, then why wouldn't you charge that price?
And I'm fine with that.
To a point.
To a point.
Oh.
But I always think that's people who don't know any better.
Yeah.
They have a little change in the pocket.
To a point.
Okay.
You know, the big thing that drives me crazy is that basically there's like probably 4 to 5 wines that kind of drive the whole fucking market for that 3 times markup or higher.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And basically chain steakhouses, and there's nothing wrong with chain steakhouses. There's a lot of them that do it exceedingly well. And not a chain steakhouse, but one of my things that I always go to as far as consistency and corporate structure and education is Hillstone and Houston's, right?
Okay.
Like I can go to any Houston's in the whole freaking country. I can get the same experience, the same food.
Their training is amazing.
It's absolutely fantastic. Like there's nothing wrong with replication and scaling when you try to true to what you're doing, right?
Right. People want to know that they're going to go in and it's going to be consistent.
And it feels great, right?
Yeah.
But like kind of getting hosed with some wine prices does hurt. You know what I mean?
And I'm not saying you're getting hosed. It might be a fair price. In my mind, I'm just going,
well,
I don't know if
where
it
you're
is.
sitting and what city you're in, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
what city and how much? I mean, wine coming into Houston or New York or San Francisco.
Yeah.
These prices are, and these are kind of the major markets. Chicago,
or even better, yeah, like Chicago City, or like not to that they won the Super Bowl, but just think of Middle America.
Yeah.
You think of port cities on how much we're talking imports on how much it costs to get an import in, compared to like San Francisco or freaking even if they import into Napa and sell anywhere around there, or freaking New York, New Jersey, or New Orleans or Houston versus like elsewhere. And like that knocks off some money, man.
It does.
It does. But then it's also like thinking about your rent. So like my little sister just moved to San Francisco, and she like sends me. She's like, I swear, like you've had me drink this wine before, and I'm seeing it here. I'm like, well, rent and everything else. I mean, the inflation of that. Same thing like wherever you're eating, like downtown or whatever in Houston, your cost to solely be there every day is going to be
your
more.
Overhead is a whole lot more than out in the burbs.
Than this tiny little, I mean, yeah, it's all over. I've run wine programs for going on 15 years now, and depending on from, what I'm trying to hit from maybe having a 31% to 33% cost, at say a bigger, more expensive style restaurant that has a lot of overhead, to like a tiny wine bar where I mean I'm just doubling down.
Yeah.
I'm running 50%, 45%. Also, what I'm cooking or what we are putting out, like pizza or whatever, for example. Like you go to Italian restaurant, I mean it's flour, water, egg.
Sure.
Like that's what what I mean.
Something
like,
ingredients aren't really expensive.
Exactly. And so like, it's like where are you and what is that and all of that, plays into. So just because we know what it is and what it should be and then what those costs are, I think that we just see it.
But that's a great point. You have to think about where you're drinking that bottle. Is it out in the suburbs versus downtown Houston?
Mm-hmm.
You should expect a little bit more in
it
downtown
is,
Houston.
And one of the biggest food costs is steakhouses. America's addicted to them, and it's great. Steakhouses are great. I prefer to do like smaller bites and a lot of them for hours. If I get a huge steak in front of me, my appetite typically turns off. That's me particularly, but like as a whole, the food cost for operating a steakhouse is insane.
It's crazy, and that's
insane.
That's why you go and you see like a
talking
wedge
about
salad for
perishables.
$15
Yeah.
because it has to cover this,
Yeah.
Right.
and then having a steak sent back.
Yeah. That's
Where I mean,
over
and that's
temperature.
done, and then you got to send it out. I mean, it's like that, and they're running like that food cost is exorbitant on a steak, which is why you're paying so much for a Caesar salad
Sure.
or a wedge, to balance that out.
Yeah.
And then you have a wine program that you are investing in, know, and and you're sitting on inventory, and you have nicer glassware, nicer stems,
Right.
those things that are appropriate. Compared to something where you have, a constant turnover maybe in another restaurant of all of your product, of all of the wine. You're not sitting there on something for a long time. I mean, it's all just,
There's just so many things that play a part in that.
yeah.
Yeah. Going back real quick, because I don't think I quite answered the question, was like appropriate places to shop in Houston.
Oh, yeah.
Like Houston Wine Merchants is the top of my list. I have a super long-term relationship from them personally. So when I first started getting a wine in 2005, I went, and this is when they were still over by where,
And while you're thinking about that, not to cut you off, I want to see if I can name your number 2 before you say it. Okay, go ahead.
They used to be over next to the Americas. What's their dang restaurant over there? What's it?
Churrasco's?
Churrasco's. So they used to be on
In the
Churrasco's.
Galleria?
No. Well, Churrasco's. They have a few locations around Houston.
Westheimer?
Well, they still have one now, but they weren't there when Houston Wine Merchant was there. They're in the strip center where that Kroger was at, right
Okay.
across the street from where Houston Wine Merchant is now.
Okay.
Right. So I used to shop over there back in the day, and they were the ones that really kind of turned me out to some really phenomenal wine. And so I'm forever grateful to them. I was getting Predatori, Cru Barbarescos for $50 a bottle in the 2099 vintage.
Wow.
And like literally, I'd go pick them off once a week. I just go in there and I could never have enough money to buy a case or 3 bottles. I literally buy one that day and pick it off and drink it. And I was like, this is amazing. And so that was kind of my initial bond. And so Scott's the owner, and so that was kind of my thing. I'm always going to be trying true to them. With that, there's always great people at certain places, right? And so one of the things I'm not going to be able to speak intelligently to is that I know the numbers as opposed to the location. Like I know where the location's at, but I can't think of the cross streets. So like Specs 54 is one of the most known specs in town. And that's
Is
one
that
that's
downtown?
That's one
Smith
over by
Street?
Gessner.
Oh, by Gessner.
Smith Street is 00. They
Okay.
call that Smith Street.
They
And
have a
so
ton of
that's-
wine
that's-
in there.
That's ground zero for specs,
Okay.
right? So that's where they have all the Bainmeyers and all that stuff. And so that one is absolutely fantastic. There's a guy, Andy, that works in the wine department there for the Italian side. He's a killer. Redheaded
Okay.
guy, you're not going to miss him. 665.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of people that work there. There's another guy named Scott, whatever. If you're a big Burgundy hound, Ralph C. in the Burgundy aisle is going to, he's amazing.
At
Specs.
00 or 04?
At Smith Street.
Okay.
00. And so the other thing is, too, if you're a big golfer, take him golfing, and he'll talk to you about Burgundy the whole time.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Love to play golf.
Yeah, it's a good idea if you want to get into Burgundy. Yeah, just take the guy to go play golf. And,
4.5 hours, he'll educate you.
He'll teach you something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's always a good one. Total is kind of a new player here in town.
There's some decent stuff, though.
No, one of their biggest commitments to me that shows that they're about fine wine is Bordeaux.
Okay.
Like they have probably one of the most serious Bordeaux sets out of all stores.
Yeah.
It's not like, and the thing is, it's probably their most sincere set of wine is Bordeaux. And that's one of those things that I'm always going to be impressed with. I freaking adore Bordeaux, dude. I don't think it gets nearly the shake it deserves. And the thing is, it does for the super high-end set, and we're talking about maybe 100 producers that everyone's like, oh, yeah, those are fantastic wine. The thing with Bordeaux, they're massive, man. The wine that we're on now is going to be Montbusquet 2012 Saint Emilion Grand Cru. This is one of my favorite producers. So when he shot me pictures this morning, this is one of the things I was so excited about because I freaking adore this producer. I don't drink it enough. And so, and it was a really fun thing for me to kind of look in the history of it because I haven't looked at it in a long time. And
Yeah.
I really love his wines. So whenever started getting into wine in 2005, this was one of the first producers I got to try that I absolutely fell in love with for Bordeaux. And the really neat thing with these people is that they do a Blanc as well.
Oh,
And
really?
So Saint Emilion. So if you look at Bordeaux as a whole, out of all the little appellations, Grave is considered kind of the holy grail for white wine for Bordeaux, right? For the best ones, the most like longevity, all this stuff. So
So that goes on the left bank, right? So the left bank is basically Medoc, and then you have Pessac Logron.
Pessac Lognon.
Lognon. And then Grave right there, right? Which is all kind of the same. And then the white wines, the most famous ones come from that little area, right? So Saint-Emilion is not an area that's known for white wine at all.
Okay.
And so that's what makes this so freaking spectacular. They have 1 hectare of it. And so they only make about 350 cases a year. And it's absolutely gorgeous. That's for their white. Their red is absolutely fantastic as well. And
So when you say hectare, tell Americans.
so a hectare is like 2.48
okay, acres. Okay.
Yeah, and so
Small production.
itty bitty production. Itty bitty production, totally handheld, if you will, as far as from growing, planting, when they decide to pick, they control the whole process. It's all them. Bordeaux is interesting in the fact that it's in a very established region. That's kind of the benchmark for prices for how expensive things can be. And so there's kind of been a thing throughout time to where I'm just rambling now.
Keep going, man. I'm learning.
No, so anyways, it's just to me, and this is a really interesting thing, right? So
This line is opened up, by the way.
oh, it's freaking gorgeous.
You know what I'm most happy about is that I picked out, because you just told me to pick out. You didn't tell me to pick out whatever.
No, I said
specific
whatever
wine.
you want to do, man.
And I picked out 3 that you guys aren't going, who's this idiot? What are we
man.
doing
These are great
here?
wines.
These are
Okay, cool.
awesome. Very lovely.
And so my thing is all right, so there's 2 truths to life, right? You can have passion and you can have consumerism, right? You can go to either one, right? You can chase the money, you can chase your passion, and hopefully at the end they both kind of meet and you make fucking money and you're
Agree.
fucking happy, right?
Yep.
And so that's kind of the difference between Burgundy and Bordeaux, right? Burgundy is straight passion, very defined sets of what things can be. Some people kind of go outside the law, declassify some shit, give some stuff back to the people that really give a shit, and understand that those things are of value because they don't have the namesake, but we know what it tastes like because it's right next to this.
Right.
And it's basically, the little ode to us kind
Right.
of thing. But within that, you have to be within certain parameters, right? So Bordeaux is kind of the opposite end of that spectrum. They get set into classifications, right? Especially on the Medoc, the left side of the river, right? And that's going to be more cap-based land. Saint-Emilion is one big piece of appellation as Medoc breaks off into different areas, right? You get Saint Julien, Saint Estèphe, Margaux, Pouliac.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go a little bit further into Pessac Lognon. And so within those different areas, they have different stylistic trademark flavors and taste, right? There's different producers that do better and whatever else. As far as for ultimate fine wine for a single appellation within Bordeaux, Saint-Emilion is way bigger than all of them.
It
They make
is.
more fine wine per appellation than anyone else.
Okay.
By far. So if you're looking for one name to kind of gravitate towards and learn Bordeaux and appreciate it, Saint-Emilion's the one you probably
So when you
lean
see that
towards.
on the label, you should be getting a decent wine.
You should be getting a really decent wine.
Okay.
And this is, and I'll jump into something a little bit later, but Saint-Emilion is kind of tried and true. The other thing that really appeals to American drinkers, and this goes back to just European wines in general, is that you got the fruit-forward wines with American palates that typically gravitate towards it. And then with European wines, typically you can have secondary flavors right at the gate. And that's tried and true to where they're from, right? And this goes into they don't have the abundant sunshine always. They don't have those things, but you can still taste from where they're from, whether it's tea leaves, chocolate-covered dirt, which is one of the greatest freaking descriptors ever because it's totally tried and true to Bordeaux. So anyways, Saint-Emilion's Merlot-based, so you get a little bit more chewy, more accessible, yummy wines right out the gate. Right, Medoc maybe not so much, and the further north in Medoc you typically don't see it, and the further south definitely they get really heavy as fuck, and yeah, they might be delicious, but you're not going to be able to afford them.
Oh, okay.
So you're not going to want to pop the cork
You're not
until they're
gonna-
absolutely
right.
at perfection, right?
Yeah.
And so this producer in particular, I really freaking dig. I've never had a bad wine from them. And that's in the Rouge or the Blanc. I've only had the Blanc 3 times.
I haven't had the Blanc at all.
The Blanc is it's the one Blanc for Bordeaux that a lot of people I never hear anyone talk about. And it's so freaking good. And it's because it's from Saint-Emilion.
Is this one right bank or left bank?
This is right bank.
Right bank.
That's what I thought.
Saint-Emilion is
Because
right
it's Merlot heavy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing with Bordeaux is that a lot of people don't quite realize here is that the appellation's fucking gigantic.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean that like if you're drinking Bordeaux, you're drinking like uber rich wine, like as far as like dollar wise. Right?
Just to make people who are, California people,
Yeah.
if you took Napa and put it into Bordeaux, how many
I don't know
Napa?
that number. I
Okay.
don't know that number.
But it's multiple.
But I'll tell you this. Okay, they almost make 1 billion bottles a year.
And Napa produces
I don't know.
not even close to that.
Not
though.
even close.
Not
maybe,
even close.
Maybe a tenth.
A tenth. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's what I
10
would
times
assume.
production.
But that's the thing with Bordeaux that makes it so badass.
And that's just one region, Bordeaux.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll say this. I shop a lot of the satellite stores of specs for Bordeaux.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, Total has a really good set, and they do. And they specialize on more kind of established brands.
Okay.
And so the thing with the Bordeaux, as opposed to any other region for European imports, and this is from the import side, so this is like hot take bullshit, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
That's really interesting is that the vast majority of it's traded like commodities. Okay. And
6.4 million.
6.4 million is what
Out of Napa.
does, as opposed to 900 million bottles.
From one region called
bottles or
Bordeaux.
cases?
6.4 million. Oh, wait. Nope. 6.4 million 12 bottle cases.
Yeah, so what's that?
From Napa.
Hold on a second, let me do the math.
So that's like, 41 million cases or bottles
6.4?
6.4.
Oh,
6.4.
times 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
60.
Yeah, 72 million
72 million.
bottles as opposed to almost 1 billion,
Yeah.
right? Or 1,000, right? Because
Right.
we're talking about almost, yeah. So 1,000 almost versus 72, right? So less than a 10%, right? And so the thing with Napa that makes it so interesting, with Bordeaux that makes it so interesting is that with that much wine, there is a lot of fine wine in there. And so when I shop at Specs, I go to satellite stores because I can find some of the older vintages, and I can find some stuff with like the flavor patina, right? To where it's like you get more of the expressive places from where it's from because the wine is now evolved in bottle. And most of those bottles I buy, and I have a very kind of strict policy with Bordeaux. I'm either going to be really happy and talk to a buddy and trade him financially or on a bet for fantasy football or some shit because I know who has what wine and where I might win to be able to do those things. But for the most part, if I'm buying Bordeaux, I'm going to spend probably, I'm going to be pretty happy at $25.
$25 all day long.
And that's a wine that's 7 years old from a particular area. You know what I mean? And a lot of it's right banks, Merlot based, Saint Emilion, or they'll call it a Cru Bourgeois, which is another classification that they have. You kind of need to know what to look at. I'll give you a list. I'll make you a list, man.
And I'll put it on the
I'll make a
Facebook
list.
page so that everybody can see it. But
So going back real quick, and I forget, I'm jumping all over the place right now. But going back to commodities, and this is the biggest thing with Bordeaux. If we wanted to go there, and let's say the most famous 5 wines from the Medoc are going to be like the 5 first gross, right? So you got the Two Lafite, so you have Mouton, and then you have Rothschild, right? You have Margaux, you have Aubryon, and then you have why did I just forget that?
You have
Latour.
Latour.
So with those 5, no one has a national right to import those.
really?
So like if I'm saying I'm going to import, not even that one even. So let's say Colombini Brunello from Montalcino. I talk to them, we get a national import rights. No one else can touch that wine as far as importing it. That's us. With Bordeaux, the laws are entirely open for those top-end wines, and they literally trade like fucking commodities.
Really?
Yeah.
So people bid to be able to.
Well, anyone can go over there and grab 15 cases and bring it here and sell it for whatever the hell they want to sell it for. And so it's a very price-driven thing, but these wines are not inexpensive.
Right.
And so when most people think of Bordeaux, they think of those wines because they're readily available, they're accessible. And the other thing is, too, is that for fine wine, for those 5 producers, on the high side, they're making 25,000 cases a year, dude. These wines, when they come out, are sometimes $1,100 a fucking bottle.
I know.
At 25,000 cases.
I've never had one, so I wouldn't know.
Petrus, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when the hell it was.
$4,000 a bottle?
They had a tank. They had a French tank follow the truck to port to ship to the U.S.
Oh, I didn't. Jesus.
Because the wine's so damn expensive on the damn
Right.
truck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking bonkers shit, man.
Yeah.
And those wines, like, released, depends on what it is. Could be $15,000, whatever it is, man. You know?
So you give that example, and then one of the guys I think of in Italy for very expensive wines is Gaia.
I think Guy is a marketing genius. I think his wines are good. I'm not knocking his wines. I had a chance to meet Guy. I've never met Angelo Gaia. I think that I was super fortunate. There was a guy in Houston a long time ago, and I love this story, so I'm going to freaking talk about it. There was a guy named Flash McGrath and Jim Vill.
That is a name right there,
Yeah.
Flash.
Jim Vill, if you know, he knows this guy very well, and we talk about him a lot. And so Jim Vill is kind of a wine somebody in town, and he's just a really fun, cool, without a disparaging term to it, older guy. He's fucking seen it all. You know what I mean? So historically, it's really fun to freaking talk to him about like how things were 20 years ago versus now. He's just been a wine guy his whole life.
Yeah.
So it's really neat. So anyways, one of his good buddies was Flash McGrath. And I knew Flash McGrath before I knew Jim. And now we both had these stories, and Flash died not too long ago. I guess maybe 5-6 years ago. Flash was this really unique character. In Houston, it was kind of a staple. I had situations where he would come into former places to work and bartend. And he would come in and slow night, and he'd come in his black Gucci suit, and he's probably mid-70s at this point, running marathons around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, he'd come in, and then he'd let's get in my locker, pop his locker, and we'd drink 7 bottles of wine while I'm working, and closing up shop and going to leave, and he's like, go call so and so at wherever, and let's go drink 2 more bottles of Old Bordeaux. I'm like, this is fantastic, and he's tipping me $700, and we're drinking old freaking Gaia and like just crazy things.
Yeah.
So a lot of my cutting my teeth with Gaia was with actually this guy, Flash McGrath. And so the wines are worth every freaking penny of it. And
That was going to be my simple question.
They're absolutely worth it. And the thing is too, it goes back to what people are willing to pay, man.
Yeah.
And I think with Bordeaux, and this is where I think about the classics that people coming back to it. You know what I mean? There's a reason these wines are famous from these places. It doesn't mean you need to pay $500 a bottle for it. Well, you can get it $20. And the thing is, and this is the reason I think that the classics are going to come back, is that California's become so expensive.
Yeah.
I mean,
California,
I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say this, and this is like hot take bullshit number 2, but it's kind of interesting. So the vast majority of wine that was made in California in 2018 and 2019, like, is off the fucking charts. So they've had all these wonky vintages kind of here of great fruit, but maybe not a lot of quantity, fires, earthquakes, blah, blah, blah. A lot of wine there now. So affordability going back to Napa is probably going to happen, which is kind of crazy.
It is going to happen, you think? Okay, because I heard the opposite, from 2017 and moving forward, that because of the fires and things, production is going to be low.
I talked to a buddy for National Accounts, and they're looking at like $25 wholesale.
Really?
For some Napa fruit. Like some Napa good bottles.
Which you're normally
I'm not looking to shit on anyone Napa.
40 to 60,
Yeah, but that's back to reality.
For wholesale.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Napa is good. It's just not my thing, but I know it's great wine.
But to your
It's
point
fine
earlier,
wine.
people are paying that price, so why not charge it? I mean,
Yeah.
a fair price is all about perspective. If people are buying it, then
But
sell it.
base Napa in the mid-60s, $70 is outrageous.
Yeah.
They have to run away from that shit. They cannot live there. You're getting a
And that's kind of, I think, where they're living, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, when I think of
years.
what's well known, I think, Pine Ridge or Round Pond, and I think, other places, Chateau Montalina and other places like that, they're all in that, $50 to $60 range.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's an obligation for me to talk about other retailers just in general. And one of the things I will mention real quick, HEB is a super tight set. This is going to be the longest podcast you ever did.
No, it's not. It's not even close yet.
Okay. All right. Well, game on.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think HEB is like one of the kind of tried and trues of...
It's my favorite place to buy wine.
Dude,
because I live out here in Katy.
Badass, man.
Great prices, too.
Great prices.
Good selection.
Available. Us living in the burbs. We live way the hell out here. We can walk into any of them.
Would you know my only disappointment with them?
What's that?
Get more Old World.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, scream that.
Yeah, and I'll let the people I know in the wine departments, Tim and Caroline specifically out here at these two big, know that, and I've told them both. Yeah, we need more Old World out here.
Yeah. The neat thing is that they do a tight set, man. I mean, like, you can't be everything to everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And so they learned a long time ago, it's always their blueprint model, was that, I could probably go in there and count SKUs, and there's probably not $400 in any store.
Yeah.
And so like Bunker Hill is considered one of the best stores. I don't know if you ever shopped
That's a
at
great.
Bunker Hill.
You shop there, yeah.
Dude.
Not a lot, but
Favorite.
frequently they
That
have a lot of
store is
stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing. Altuve shops there all the time.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Is what I heard. And so, but no, I think it's really interesting.
Well, here's what I like about HEB too. If you get to know the wine people there, and
they
I mentioned
tailor it.
Caroline,
They tailor it.
they will. You tell them what you like, and if they can get it, they'll get it in. They'll at least get a case and see how it sells, and if it sells, they'll continue to buy it.
Yeah.
And usually, I'm the kind of guy, you get a case in, I'll buy at least 3 or 4 from you, and probably
This is
know a few
something
people.
I don't know this.
So
Yeah.
good.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess, I shop at Central Market.
Central Market's fantastic.
That's what I thought was going to be your number 2
Yeah.
place to shop, because they have
No,
a
it
great
really
selection of old world.
It
And
is, and I'm not saying that to say it. No, it really is. I worked at Central Market once upon a time, and so that's like kind of where the roots have been set. And I know kind of I've seen behind the curtain there, and their number one objective is quality and education. Like, and for that to be the standard of the bar set is
pretty cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
And this is the number one thing I say to people that are getting into wine, and they're asking me like how to do it and what to do. Go to fucking Central Market, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about go work the wine department. I'm talking about go work through produce, smell every damn thing, get that damn flavor bank built in your head, walk through Protein Alley, stop in the wine department, talk for a little bit, go to dry goods, smell black mission figs, smell Turkish apricots.
Some
From
current.
that, go to a freaking tea department that's right next to it. Start smelling English tea, American black tea, freaking white tea, jasmine, freaking pearl tea, blah, blah, blah. Smell all those teas. Get that flavor bank. And then go to the coffees. Do the same thing. Before leaving, stop over in the cheese section. Smell all that, man. Like, it is the number one smell place in Houston by a mile. It's amazing.
It takes me forever to get in and out. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty,
And produce, smell all the
Industry,
mushrooms.
I am. I'm touching
Shiitakes
everything.
versus
Yeah.
freaking all of them.
the
Like,
chocolate bar,
Yeah, dude,
like those bitter, like
you want to
90%
learn
dark
wine,
chocolate.
go to Central Market.
Yeah.
Like,
We-
just go smell everything.
It's an event when we go there. I mean, it's a treat. It's a special,
I love
special
it.
shopping
I love
occasion.
it.
They
to
have
go in there.
Citrus Fest going on right now. I walked in and it's right when they're hanging up the big thing that says Citrus Fest
Yeah.
and everything. And it's just these beautiful bright colors all the way down that row. And what I was going to be cooking that night was completely different.
Yeah.
But I just sat there. It was just took me forever just to get down that one hole,
Yeah.
that back wall right
Yeah.
there. Just
And
great.
I don't do it right, because you're saying, to go in and really, get to know those flavors, those smells and everything.
Yeah.
Because my problem is I go in and the first thing I do is my wife gets a glass of wine and I get a big old beer just to have while I'm shopping, man. So I'm like, what other grocery store you get a beer and a glass of wine while you're going
that's
around?
great because then you have that and you're walking around
Yeah.
and you if you are then being very tactile and touching and smelling and all these things, and then you can start cutting down and
Yeah.
have that actual memory too, where you can actually just pull that out.
It's
definitely-
our favorite place to shop. Obviously we live out in the burbs, so we don't do it as often. But
Yeah.
when my wife and I go, hey, let's cook a nice dinner on Saturday.
Yeah.
Great. Let's go to brunch at a boozy, and then let's hit over to
Dude, that's
Central
a
Market,
great idea.
and
Yeah.
then let's come back out and cook some food and
Cannot wait
hang
for
out.
my kids to get older.
Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy the years you have right now. I know you do, and I know you do. But when you reach those years when they're driving and it's like no longer cool to hang out with mom and dad, me and mom get to do some fun stuff too.
Some cheese.
But
in
they're
it.
like,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah, they're like, hey, you guys want to hang out for dinner? No, not with you old people. So
Yeah,
off
that's
they go.
awesome, man.
Yeah. So this wine you like?
Yeah, I do. So Montbusquet's fantastic. If you can ever find their Blanc, buy it. Like, take a chance, buy the damn bottle. It'll probably cost you $80.
Can you find it in town? Wine merchants have it?
I haven't. I'm sure they probably can order it. I haven't seen it in
and
a
see.
long time.
Okay. I didn't even know they made
Yeah.
a Blanc. So
And then, so going back to, and I apologize, we went on so many tangents from here, but going back to the truths of basically consumerism versus like passion, I feel like there's as much truth in Bordeaux as there is in Burgundy, because they both get to the same place at the end, right?
Yeah.
Happiness, and there might be expensive prestige, what the hell you want to call it, but like Bordeaux doesn't quite get the same cachet as a generalization of Bordeaux, right? Everyone always thinks of like the first gross and stuff like that. As opposed to Burgundy, if you just say Burgundy, everyone always starts thinking about Grand Crus.
it's
and like,
already a
they're
level
already
up.
there. Yeah, the passionate, the romance of freaking wine, right?
But Bordeaux is there, and like some of the white wines from Bordeaux are every bit as good. And once again,
I drank a ton of white wine when I was there.
Really?
Yeah, and just sitting there having oysters
wines, man.
on the water and things like that. And I fell in love with Bordeaux, and I fell in love specifically with Saint-Emilion. And I'm a Burgundy person, and I was like, okay, I really need to do this trip. This is definitely something, you know. But I didn't expect it to have that effect. And walking through, we did Saint-Emilion first, which first of all, just for me as a history geek, which is why I got into wine. I mean, just all these old buildings and the city of Saint-Emilion itself.
Yeah,
And I mean, like,
I haven't seen it. It's
you're going down like
gorgeous.
this. Like, I mean,
it's one of the most classic cities for wine in the
Really?
unbelievable.
Europe,
And Saint-Emilion reminds me more of Burgundy in that it's like these small growers, and it's it's a lot more casual.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun while I was there, and the price points are incredible. And then we moved over to go see, you know, the big boys over on the left bank, and it was lovely, and it was amazing to get to do this. But it was very, I mean, you see me like sit up more in my chair, and it's very like
Prim and proper.
yes, and it's the same thing. I feel like for me going from Burgundy up into Champagne, I did the same thing. Like Burgundy is like, it's chill.
Yeah, it's
and then
cool.
Champagne, you know, it's the champagne houses, and you are prim and proper, and you know, it had that, and not discounting it in any way, but for bang for your buck, for me, I will go Saint-Emilion, and I absolutely fell in love. And this wine, I think, is fantastic.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm hanging out in the right spot then a little bit.
Yeah, no, it is. So like Bordeaux as a whole is like the same as Burgundy, where it's as rewarding, and the more you kind of dig into it and know who the neighbor is and stuff like that. But one of the things I was trying to get to earlier that I didn't touch on is that Burgundy is set. You can't fuck with it. They're not changing laws. They're not restructuring areas.
Deal with it.
One thing with Bordeaux that is kind of interesting, it's kind of like self-regulation. It's almost like capitalism to a point, to where they'll push the needle to as far as they can go, but if they stay within the same realm of quality, then they can continue to get more consumers. And so, like, let's say, like, Drouin, like this 2016 Drouin, right, Morgon, let's say they own 60% of that vineyard, they want to buy the other 30. Let's just say it's 90 hectares or whatever, right? They want to buy the other 30, right? But this was, like, an area that wasn't, like, super classified, right? It was just under their domain or whatever, right? For them, by the other 30, they wouldn't have to do anything as long as it was within that area. But they wanted to buy like 50 more hectares, and 20 of them were outside of it. They'd have to change the name now. And they wanted to bottle all as one.
Okay.
Right? Bordeaux doesn't have to do that shit. So they're like, we are who we are. We buy our neighbors, and we're just
going to call it our brand.
Yeah, now it's just more Montbusquet.
Right. We can produce at a bigger.
Yes. The only thing that they're at risk of is public scrutiny of it's not the same quality.
Because quality. Yep. Okay.
And so as long as they can keep within that, they can expand and expand and expand.
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot.
It does happen a lot.
That's why the first grows can make like 25,000 cases a year. And even though they're like, you know, $500 or $300 to $1,100 a bottle of thing, they can stay within that because they're holding quality to it. And then there's also second labels and third labels and shit like that, where they can put the other juice.
Okay.
Right? So it doesn't fall within that. But it's fucking wild, dude.
That does sound wild. So, as we talked about a few regions, you made me think of one that I've heard a lot about, but I don't know anything about.
Okay.
Provence.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So I hear all these people talk about Provence, and my wife and I are considering you like that?
I love it, dude.
We're considering a cruise next year on the river where we're going to spend some time in Provence and Burgundy. But I don't know anything about Provence, so tell people.
We just picked up a Provence producer.
You did?
Yeah, Esclair. So
is it more white or is it more red?
Rosé is the name of the game. So everyone does red and white too. Rosé is the name of the game, but they all do it. And so, yeah, if you're going there, please talk to me. Okay. So the number one producer, in my opinion, for Provence, and I'm not going to plug my own shit because...
Plug it, man.
Esclair is absolutely amazing. So the funny thing is that we've been wanting to get in the Provence game for 5 years. Okay. And so we passed the first 2 years we looked, we didn't find what we were looking for. The last 3 years we've had people approach us, and then we didn't grab, right? And so this last year we found what we wanted, and then we pushed them back a year because we said we're not going to go release rosé in the middle of summer. We're going to like do a whole brand plan within a full year. So anyways, Esclair is that. And so we're real excited about this, and it's kind of funny that we're a big European importer with some prestige, and we haven't been in rosé Provence until this year. But with that, it's one estate, one massive giant vineyard.
really a defining degree of elevation to the vineyard. It's a big vineyard, but it sits on one massive hill.
Okay.
And so we do 3 different tiers within it. The one that I like the best, so we do one is called Pucha, and then the other one is
What's it called?
It's Pucha, Pacha, and then one of the other ones that we do is one called June 21st.
June 21st.
Yeah, it's the summer solstice, hottest day of the
Okay.
year. And
Yeah.
so, like bottled sunshine, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah. And then we do one above that one. But with Rosé and Provence, there's one thing I think about in particular. Houston is super blessed with Provence in general. We have one guy in town that is from Provence, and he specializes in Provence. And he has his own importation company called Bandel Imports. And so it's a guy named Amin. So, like, we've been super lucky to be way ahead of the Rosé curve for a long time here. He's one of the big proponents of it. And so, but the tongue-in-cheek joke to me is that he doesn't have the King Gem of Provence,
Which is
Pibernon.
Okay.
So, Chateau Pibernon, you ever get a chance to try it, you ever drink it, it's head and shoulders above everything.
Really?
Yeah, it's by far the finest wine.
Well, we're going to have to chat later because my wife wants to get more into rosé.
I'll help say with appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let me tell you my philosophy, and tell me if I'm wrong on this. I don't think either one of you will disagree. I hear so many people, like I said earlier, that say, I want to just stay, Napa's what I know, Napa's what I like. That's what. To me, you're selling yourself way short if you're not going to have an open mind when you get into wine. If you really, truly want to get into wine, have an open mind, explore all the old world. I mean, I found some stuff in Croatia I like, Greece that I like, New World in Argentina and Chile and Australia. I mean, to me, it's just, I'm having a blast just trying to go out. And I know it's a never-ending kind of thing. Yeah. You're never going to get through it all, but it's just a fun journey.
It's just like you just fall down these rabbit holes, and I never discount anything. I know kind of what I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
But I think we were talking about the old semis that at lunch. It's like old California, pardon me, was like stunning, but everyone's like, we don't normally drink.
No one's bragging about drinking semi today.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's and nothing wrong with semi. It's just it's plugged into a formulaic approach to wine. They abandoned what they were a long time ago. Okay. And that's fine. I'm not knocking them. I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm just, when you taste old semi and new semi, you can't believe it's the same people.
Okay.
But
so,
just having an open mind, doing everything, like trying everything, try it all.
And I would take this. If you're into wine, if you want to get into wine, take a antique picker's approach, right? Like, what you put in and what you learn is what you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you need to spend the most money. It just means that, like, when you go out, like, hell, man, think of it as exciting, man. Like, there's nothing better than finding a new wine you love that's $15. Like, is there anything better?
No.
Dude, I'll tell you, man, like, I've had, like, Bordeaux in particular, man. This is one of my favorite things with the Hunts of Bordeaux. There's one Bordeaux book. It's Michael Berry. Forgive me if I have this wrong. Michael Berry, Bordeaux's book. Find this damn book. It has every producer in Bordeaux in it, and then it goes into their history and kind of who they are and what they represent in the past, when they bought land, whatever else. And so, but it's really rewarding because you can pick up pretty much any damn bottle, and then you'll start to like triage what you're looking at.
But my whole thing is don't pigeon yourself into one profile.
No.
You need to understand that different parts of the world, different regions, different climates, are going to produce something different in the bottle, and kind of understand and appreciate that.
Yeah.
Have fun with it, and maybe it's not necessarily what you are, what you normally gravitate towards or what you're looking for at that time. But I mean, it's fermented grape juice. It's fun. It's interesting to do that, and you're taking it. It's joyful. No matter how you look at it, I
mean, the worst case scenario too is that you drink a bad bottle. I mean, like
pop another one.
Yeah, we all had a bad beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too often.
Yeah.
Right.
Too often.
Bad bourbon, bad everything at some point. Yeah.
But it's like I'm trying to find this.
So I
This has been a lot of fun. I'm not looking to jump off just yet, but like just kind of in general, this is like it's a neat conversation to be had, and
I think too many Americans just don't, for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, and maybe I'm living in a vacuum that I don't.
You're not. I cover a lot of states and see a lot of shit, man. You're not. You're way progressive compared to most.
Okay, to me, I think they're missing out.
Yeah,
I mean, once I got into it, I went, oh man, there is like this whole other. It's huge.
This is the funniest thing. So in the wine business, we always say don't talk about Ed and Rosa.
Okay.
Because shut the fuck up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like today, it's like if we could get like Great Burgundy at nothing, that's Ed and Rosa.
Okay.
And so we always talk about that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're like,
yeah. Yeah, don't let everybody know, or the man goes
just
up,
make
price
it
goes
available.
up. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
talk about it.
I just, I'm one of those guys that, I like to share.
Yeah, no, as you should. And I'm not asking that to be Ed or anything like that.
No, I know
it's
what you mean.
It's funny though.
Yeah.
It's like, and the funny thing is that like throughout time these things have existed. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not the first people to enjoy these things as being fine things to enrich our lives.
Not with the history of, old world wines for, you could say, thousands of years.
Exactly. And so it's like, it's just kind of an interesting thing now that like, it's interesting to watch America kind of come into its own as far as putting a prestige to these things as opposed to, I think it used to almost be like almost like a black eye.
Yeah.
Like embarrassment of riches, right? Like you never wanted to talk about what you fucking knew about wine. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like,
right.
Oh, vintage, you snobby. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
that's exactly what it was.
But now it's like, it's different.
But
Now
you're
it's like,
right. I mean, wine has gotten cool. It's
Yeah,
no
it's
longer
totally
that,
fucking cool.
high class, snobby
No,
kind
hell
of
no.
drink. It's a cool thing to do. And my daughter's 21. And I love the fact that she loves to drink wine with us now. And I told her, honey, you're spoiled because she'll even tell me, Dad, I went out with some friends and we wanted to order a bottle of wine. And what they wanted to order, I was like, I'm not drinking that. Yeah. We can order this.
I mean, dude, congratulations.
Yeah. And it makes
awesome.
me jealous of hell because I didn't get into wine until I was, 40,
Yeah.
late 30s. And I'm like, man, I missed out on, 15, 17 years of really starting to explore and collect and enjoy
It drives
wine.
me nuts. No one in my family drinks. Like,
Nobody?
I have an uncle that drinks beer and he's great and all that shit. But like,
Enjoying a good bottle of wine now.
no, it does not
Really?
exist. It drives me crazy. So like, I hosted Thanksgiving for
Not me.
years.
No, you don't have that
Oh
problem?
my god, I wish I had that. And so it's so funny. This one year, I was hosting Thanksgiving for years, and as soon as I had my first son, we'd have people come to Houston. I was still living in a condo, and I had like 15 people in my condo. And like, anyways, I can one of the few people that can cook in my family too.
Yeah.
I also learned to cook from wine, FYI,
Yeah, that makes sense.
to find balance.
Sure.
Because like, so when I started cooking, I was like, all right, this needs acid. All right, this needs salt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, like one of the last ones I did was, I guess like, shoot, how old was it? I guess 9 years ago, because I had one son at the time. I opened up 9 bottles for my favorite winery in Italy, in Alto Adige. I opened up 9 of their bottles for a 16-person Thanksgiving.
Okay, nice.
Adults, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was like 3 kids there. And so, anyways, no one touched them.
Really?
Yeah, I was furious. And after that, I gave up on my family. I was like, all right, you guys just are not going to drink wine ever. And that's fine. But, yeah, it was painful. It was painful.
People
and watching the cringe face of trying to drink a wine and then their face just go, they're like, that's so dry. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my God.
I mean, people, I think, know who you are, Jeremy, from, Facebook and things like that. A lot of people. But I love that you're not from an area that you associate with wine.
Mm-mm.
So just quickly, you got into wine. What? I mean, did you have a love for wine first?
Nah, I grew up in Victoria, Texas, and so small little. It's just a weird place, man. I mean, like
small Texas town.
Small Texas town. My great grandparents went back, like way back to the base of the founding. So there's like a little road with Huntsman Road and shit like that. So anyways, basically the standard duty of within the family kind of stay there and do their shit. I started dating a German girl my sophomore year of high school. And so I graduated early my sophomore year, and then went and lived there for 3 months and came back a year later.
Okay.
So I went and left my little small hometown to go live in Europe for basically 4 months and go fuck around and have some great times. I was there for Millennium and all kinds of fun
Oh, that's
stuff.
cool.
So like all my social morals got washed away.
Yeah.
And then like quickly
Prim and
and
proper.
then also drinking like became like it wasn't drinking like to get drunk. It was just drinking as enjoyment. We would literally I would go to their it was Arbiture was our high level high school, and so I'd attend most every day and wake up, do the bike ride to the school. It's cold as shit. You know, get there, hang out, and then like at lunch, literally there's like a 2-hour break. You don't go to lunch in the school. You break and you can do whatever you want. Some people go home. Some people go to the pub and have a beer.
At high school.
And this is in high school, and we'd go to the pub and we'd have beers, and it would not be like drunk. It would just be like a beer, maybe 2 beers. And they would go back to school for 2 hours, and then I'd go do my thing for 2 hours, and we'd all meet up at the end of the night, and it was great. And I had this really simple way of living in this little small town in Germany, and then when I came back, I was like completely brainwashed of like, this is
We're not
broken.
living right, yeah.
This is broken, you know? And so like I got into wine, and I was first into booze. So when I first moved to Houston, I was a fry cook at Dave & Buster's, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Job you should have to work at your life because it will make you want to do a lot of good shit. And so like from that point on, I ended up working at a comedy club as a downstairs waiter, and I love that job so much. I got to meet a lot of comedians. It was a lot of fun. And then I also got to smoke a whole pack of cigarettes every day, which was a big bonus
there you
for
go.
me at 20 or 22. And then like, but anyways, I got into wine in 05, and that's what changed everything. And so,
Now, what triggered that?
it was really weird because I was a spirits aficionado. Like I
Okay.
was like a spirits junkie. And the funny thing was, the place where I cut my teeth on spirits, I was going there illegally for about 1.5 years. And so when I got hired there, I was the first guy to ever work there. It was a little Irish pub. So when I started working there, I had to celebrate my 22nd, 23rd birthday there.
Okay.
And that was my 21st and 22nd birthday. And so
Gotcha. I understand what you're
at
saying.
one point in time, I had 2 pitchers of beer, and I'm trying to walk to a table about 10 feet away, and the pitchers are empty by the time I get there. So like, I was crazy as hell then. And I lived next door.
Crazy as hell
Just
then.
then?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Lexi.
Like
Still
we both
crazy as hell, a little bit more
chime in
refined.
on that.
Yeah, but anyways, like, no, it was fun. It was cool. And then like, I bounced around. I was at Tony's for a bit here in town, and like, I love Tony's still to death, and it's great. And
But where did you have that wine moment? Who?
yeah, it was actually at Kova, and so Kova was like the area where I cut my teeth, and like, as much as it irks me to say it, but like, I can have a very real conversation with a man today as Montreal Horton. Like he is, he's not a beloved man in the industry in Houston, but he is definitely an authority.
Yeah.
And so when I went to go work there, it was that. And so I didn't know anything about wine, and my aha moment was one guy came in looking for a wine, and so we had to do like a steward shift once a week. So I was a bar manager and bartender, and so like my buddy Chapman, who I love to death, and just had his first baby. I'm so happy for him. His birthday was yesterday.
Nice.
Anyways, I love this guy. You got to meet this guy one day. He's fucking awesome.
Okay.
He stabs knives in alligators' heads. Like
It's a
crazy
badass
shit.
dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Baytown, it's like maybe 5'1".
Okay.
He just fucking, he loves being a small guy and like doing crazy shit. So it is. Long story short. Anyways, I'm working a steward shift, and this guy's shopping for a wine, and Chapman's talking to him, and he's looking for whatever, and Chapman goes, "Yeah, the Dash Zinfandel's jammy," and like that moment was like my little. You know, I was there
Yeah.
for 4 months, didn't understand anything, and we're selling some great wines and all this shit. And then as soon as it said jammy and that wine and Zen, I was like, all right, I can start learning this shit.
Yeah.
Because now I can start putting things in boxes and understand what the fuck I'm talking about. And then I was like super fucking blessed to have an opportunity to be able to taste some insane wines every fucking day.
Yeah.
We always had a wine over $100 by the glass. We had 50 wines by the glass, 16 flights. It changed weekly. And so Montreal being as astute and difficult as he can be, I love the guy now. It was amazing because what he expected was not the norm.
Right.
And we just turned and cranked wine like no one's business. I mean, like, the sales we did in that place were absolutely astronomical, even today. And this was in 05 for wine sales. Like, 60 wines by the glass, dude. Like, insane.
And so you said, I'm going to find a job in wine, and this is going to be
so
my...
no, it took a little bit longer than that. So leaving, I was there for 2 years. I quit on Valentine's Day, which was really fucking funny. And I put him in a big fucking hole that day.
So you left and put them in a bind?
Yeah, put him in a bind that day. It was perfect. And so the week prior, I got written up because I wrote myself up and handed it to him.
You wrote yourself up?
Yeah, he threatened to write me up, so I wrote him up. I wrote myself up and handed it to him, and that threw him into a loop. And so it was really great to get to quit on Valentine's Day. It was awesome.
So much sass.
So much sass. And so anyways, long story short, no, I mean, like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. Like, honestly, like, as far as what I know and all that stuff. So I give a huge tip of the hat to that man. He is an incredibly hard person to work for. But he never would take mediocrity.
Yeah.
Like, every damn day, like, he drove people insane. But at the same point in time, he just... One of the greatest pre-shift meetings of my life, and, like, it will stick with me for the rest of my life. We're about to have this massive dinner and do all this shit. And mind you, this was, like, infancy of wine in America. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though it's the early, like, mid-2000s, like, people don't understand
Hadn't
how much
blown up,
wine
like-
has come
Yeah.
from then. Like, this was, like, so fucking crazy. And so...
So it's not just me that I think wine is blown up in the
it's
last
not.
10,
No.
12 years.
Listen,
It's completely
dude,
changed.
we're the number one consumer now in the U.S. in the world.
Really?
Like, we're the fucking men. And like,
Okay.
the thing is, it's not like in fine wine. It's not in a category. Like, we consume.
Right.
Like, Belgium and the English do more per bottle, but I mean, like, they're not touching kind of what we do as far as total volume, right?
Okay.
And whatever. So anyways, we'll get there. I promise you that. But anyways, like, back in the day, like, one of the funniest pre-ships, I don't know, like, how many people know pre-ships or not, but, like, in the restaurant business, basically before a restaurant opens, everybody does a little powwow. It's typically on the line where the food comes across in the back of the house, and then, like, real shit gets spilled. You know what I mean? Like, you basically kind of call out people and, like, you know, you're weak. Like, ask for help. You know what I mean? Like, all kinds of shit kind of pops up, whatever. And so anyways, it was a very busy night. I can't remember what the fuck night it was. It might have been New Year's Eve or something like that. And Montreal, like, it was like literally, I like cried laughing so hard when he said it because it's like, you cocky motherfucker. Like, so fucking funny. But basically, he goes in this whole tangent and rant, screams at everybody, and then he basically signs off with, like, until I can clone myself, I guess I got this. You know, I'm all like, God damn, that's fucking funny, dude. So, like, so arrogant and fucked up, but, like, so fucking funny.
Dude.
But anyways, long story short, like, yeah, it's wine business is interesting. It's still in its infancy now.
So you think the wine trajectory in America is still on an upward...
It's an absolute
Yes.
rise.
And it's not slowing down anytime soon that you can see.
It's gonna be a big gobble, man. We're gonna consume everything that's out
All right,
there.
Lexey, your question next. You obviously know wine, so same thing. How'd you get into it? What's your history? What's your story?
Oh.
You obviously have a passion for it too.
Yeah. So I grew up in a family where my dad ate and drank. Pretty much, we went out almost every night, either picked up or whatever. And so, I mean, I was drinking wine when I was younger. My uncle has a cellar. My dad pretty much has like 3 wines at any given time, but it's a constant, you know. Nothing too crazy from him, but my uncle did. But I grew up with my dad. That was just like what I did. So I went to UT, and I was double majoring and double minoring at UT, and I was working.
You were hitting the books.
Oh, yeah. I'm a nerd. So I started working in restaurants. I think I came home one summer here, and I was like working at River Oaks Country Club, you know, just like serving or something. And they're like, hey, can you bartend? Like 19. I was like, sure. No idea what I'm doing, but people are ordering things. I'm like, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Started messing around in that. So anyways, working in restaurants is I think most people, you know, in school kind of tend to do. And started off at one place that had a huge wine program in Austin, and then really got into that and started sitting in on like all the tastings and all the stuff that is that. It's no longer there, but it was a big part.
Yeah.
I mean, came back here, worked at a Biza and Catalan, so and that was another thing. So with Antonio and you know, like learning all that, and I was like again more and more in love. Moved back to Austin. Started working in like another restaurant and they needed someone to kind of be a wine steward. And then, you know, I was doing the tastings and facilitating the tastings with all of our distributors and yada, yada, yada. and then really was like falling like into the hole.
Okay.
And
Fell hard.
fell real hard, and kind of learned what the court of master sommeliers was, and dropped out with 15 hours left to go with a double major and a double minor, and went that way. Started working at a wine bar there called Vino Vino, and ended up being the wine girl there. Passed my intro, took my intro, took top score, passed the certified within the next year, and just kind of went from there. And then
So are you a sommelier now?
Yes.
And at what level?
So I'm certified studying for my advanced.
Okay, nice.
So
Nice.
I'm not quite sure if that's really if I'm going to continue into the court in that way or not, but always be learning. So
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
so that was kind of my trajectory. Just still in food, actually took a big thing. I've actually worked on the line too and done that as well. So in restaurants, and I cook a lot, and all that just kind of it all made sense. For me, I was double majoring in history and sociology and double minoring in English and psychology, and it all just once I figured out wine, like I loved it, and I was already falling down that rabbit hole, and it makes sense. And for me, a lot of it is the history, even more so than anything else. So
And it can be history for a particular country or a region, but it also can be history for families that have been doing it for hundreds of years.
I love the stories. I love those things. Those are the things that I fall really hard for. Sometimes even more so than the wine itself.
Yeah. Well, it makes the wine better when you hear those stories.
Yeah, that's
you drink it and you think about what
you remember those things.
Yeah.
You remember what something is. Like the stories more so than when you talk about like the piece of a pie of what this tastes like, like especially if you got a lot, it's like all those other things or who you were drinking it with or, what was happening.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that do it. So yeah, my dad, I was drinking Montepulciano and stuff like that with him. I go to dinner,
good for your dad,
go to dinners
man.
and all that. Yeah. My dad was very much,
a wine guy.
He was about doing it. And I still say though, if I can figure out what exactly my dad likes, then I would have made it, because he's like, I don't like acid. I want it to be smooth, smooth, smooth. I'm like, you're drinking Italian, Dad. In Bordeaux, I'm real confused. So I can't ever figure out what exactly. So once I figured that out, then I'll be able to help a table a little bit more. And I remember actually when I started at that wine bar, and I was like, everyone's in love with Burgundy. I mean, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I was like, and all I had to have was like, I don't know, some cheap Burgundies, and then I got a bottle of Henri Grouge.
You're like, oh, that's why.
I was like, got it.
Now I've arrived.
Yeah, which sucks for my pocketbook or at the time,
Yeah.
still, it can be hard, collecting things like that. But that is it. And so
I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm always curious to hear. Every story is a little bit different about how people get into wine and start really loving wine, and I think it's always fun to hear those stories. But let's get ready to sign off. I appreciate you guys coming out and doing this. I'd love to do more of these where we can kind of get creative and come up with some new things. But I do want to take a minute to, I want to shout out to a few places that we like in Houston.
please.
And, you guys knock off, a couple of your favorite restaurants to go and have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine. Is there a couple that you want to shout out to?
For BYOB.
Let's do BYOB first.
Yeah, BYOB, Pepperton Wine hands down.
Okay.
I mean, it's just phenomenal food.
And we have one out here in Katy now.
Yeah, the pricing's crazy. I think there's 6 locations now in Houston, which is crazy. That's been in the last 2 years.
Okay.
It's delicious.
And then as far as going back to the tried and true as far as price point, Ibiza's great. It's going to close soon. Not part of Ibiza, but as part of the family of.
Where is Ibiza? I've never heard of that.
It's
That's in Midtown.
Louisiana Street, Midtown, right next to the Smith Street
Oh,
Specs.
okay.
You haven't been.
Okay.
We didn't go for lunch.
I haven't
before.
been.
Louisiana
So we need to
and
Yeah, you need to do that.
Okay.
Louisiana and McGowan.
Okay. I know right where that's at. Okay.
Yeah, some of my favorite places in town. Papa's is obviously numero uno.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Downtown Steakhouse?
Yeah,
Yeah.
downtown or Westheimer.
Okay.
The list is incredible, and once you kind of study and kind of know what to look for,
I mean,
You can get some value there.
dude, I can get out of there $200 in wine, 2
Okay.
bottles,
Nice.
there's some amazing
stuff that would make your jaw drop.
Okay.
and everything.
Lexi?
Their service and all that too. I would agree. I mean, Pepper Twins is definitely always going to be something that I love.
And I'm going to say that most Asian restaurants, I find, are open to BYOB.
Yes.
Most of them don't have a liquor license, so they're not opposed to you bringing in a bottle, which I love Asian food,
Yeah.
and I love being able to take a bottle of wine to Asian restaurants.
We're so lucky right now. We got that right there. Going north. We have original Chinatown over here.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And out here in Katy, I mean, we got Pepper Twins now.
Yeah.
I love Duck and Bow.
Duck and Bow's so good.
Mala just opened up. I haven't been to the one that opened up out here, but you've taken me to the one on West Alabama.
So good.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, so Asian food, if that's your thing,
No.
I mean, know that you can
Happy
usually,
place.
yeah.
I don't know. It's almost all of the Asian restaurants are the ones that kind of really, and we're, I guess, just because
Pull you
I think
in.
we have access to this and friends with
Yeah.
people who collect. Thank you. You know, it's fun to be able to do that and have everyone bring a bottle and show, you know, just see what's
That's
going
what I
on
think
and
is great,
maybe
yeah.
pick up something you've never seen before too. I do it all the time. I'm like, oh, no idea. Cool. Grab it. Got
Yeah.
it.
Champagne, you're going to say,
Oh, champagne all day long.
is a boozy.
Abuzi's
This is great, man.
prices are
And
incredible.
That's what I was going to say. I think they have great prices on their champagne then. They have a phenomenal list. I don't know anything about it, but I
They
look
have
through it and
almost
go,
100 champagnes for under $70.
yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
No, like 50 of those are like under 50.
And the food is good. And can one of you tell me the story about when you walk in, sit down, and you get a bag of popcorn? Does anybody know the history
Oh,
about
no.
that? I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Something Sean wanted to do.
Yeah.
Is that all it is?
Sean
Okay.
Marine's a smart man.
Yeah.
I worked with him
And
with
it-
that.
I just
And
thought it was
it-
cool. I didn't know what
It's
it
a
was
good.
about.
I mean, with bubbles and popcorn. I mean, first of all, I think bubbles in is the most food-friendly pairing wine
Okay.
out there. Speaking of papas, I mean, they just did one last week of all rosé champagne.
Really?
And pairing it with the whole tasting menu.
Oh, very
and then
cool.
they did a couple years ago a Franciacorta versus champagne. And I mean, these are steaks, and I think they go so well with steaks.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know.
And then buying wine. I mean, obviously, Houston Wine Merchant, if you get a chance, go in there.
Yeah.
If you're going to get educated and you're jumping in and even if you know a little about wine, they have some great stuff. And what I like about them, Antonio told me, if I don't have it, more than likely I can get it for you.
Yes.
So
it's
it's-
available as you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I like about them. So they would be, tops up there, but other places to go buy, specifically Old World. Specs is good.
The Specs is good.
Total
Central
Wine.
Market's fantastic.
AOC.
AOC. AOC.
Oh, but I guess you have to be. Yeah.
They sell wine?
You have to be
They
a
have a
member.
membership.
You have to be a member.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so that doesn't really.
But Specs, Total Wine, Houston Wine
H-E-B.
Merchants, Central Market does a great job.
Central Market does an amazing job.
I love HEB for wine in general. I just want them,
so good.
specifically out here in Katy, to get a little bit more. Caroline, Tim, be listening. A little bit more Old World in there. But,
I think it's a need. I think people will support when they do so.
yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about or throw out before we say goodbye to everybody?
Drink more bubbles.
Drink more bubbles. And specifically, Jeremy, English bubbles, pretty good?
Fantastic.
Okay. I knew that was kind of a sweet spot for you. You kind of got me onto that.
Drink review often.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it really is. I've had a couple
really is.
bottles at your suggestion. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for listening to this episode and kind of running through wine and kind of, pivoting and changing and going all over. But I think it was fun to listen to and kind of get exposed to some of the,
Fun wines, man.
some good wines and
Great wines.
different regions around France and talking a little bit about Italy. But we appreciate you guys listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey in Your Own Backyard. And until the next episode, enjoy your next pour.